Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga. Chapter 42-46. Of course, I heard that before the 9 Prefectures Ascension God ceremony, Lin Ling had indeed smashed Wangu Yanhui's head in the devil forest of the Kaiyuan River. Not only were his teeth broken, but his nose was also broken. Later on, it was Big Brother Xueqi who personally carried him back. Really? Lin Ling is so powerful? It was in the past. The current Wangu Yanhui is naturally more powerful than before, but if Lin Ling hadn't mentioned it, I would have forgotten about it. After all, Big Brother Wangu Yanhui's teeth have been mended very well. It doesn't look like they were knocked out before. Murmurs of discussion came from the corridor. Even Wangu Yanhui stopped in his tracks. His body trembled with anger as he growled, "Lin Ling, I'm going to kill you." Of course, that was what Wangu Yanhui said. However, when Lin Ling was glaring at him earlier, he did not dare to utter a word. It was clear that the brutal beating in the devil forest had left a deep shadow in his heart. "Wangu Yanhui, if there's a chance, I'll teach Lin Ling a lesson with you." While the crowd walked past Wangu Yanhui with mocking laughter, a figure arrived beside Wangu Yanhui and spoke in a cold voice. This person was none other than the 7th prince. Good. Wangu Yanhui nodded his head, looking high-spirited, but his heart was beating like a drum. 100 years ago, he had gone to Snow Wind City to act arrogantly, but Lin Ling had left him a letter that scared him so much that he pissed his pants and ran away. Now that he had to fight Lin Ling, the shadow in his heart had not been removed. Of course, it was not only him. In fact, the 7th prince beside him was even more traumatized by Lin Ling. Not long ago, Lin Ling had walked over him in the Heaven Pass city, leaving him with endless humiliation. Adding the humiliation of crippling his dragon root, he did not have the guts to teach Lin Ling a lesson unless he reached the god realm. "Senior sister, this Lin Ling is still as arrogant as before." At the end of the corridor, someone looked at a female empress and commented. She was Luli Empress. Compared to the crowd in front, Luli Empress walked past empty places. Clearly, everyone was in awe of her. "When there's a chance, you go teach him a lesson," Luli Empress said indifferently. Although her words sounded calm, there was a hint of coldness. Although Lin Ling didn't seem to be very strong, she knew how terrifying Lin Ling was. Thus, she wanted to test Lin Ling's strength through this battle for the Heavenly Palace's quota battle. She would be able to Lin course, she would be able to Lin disciples. Lin course when Lin Huang Palace disciple. Hearing this, a man behind her laughed sinisterly. Behind them were the people from Titanic Crescent God. They didn't pay much attention to Lin Ling because Lin Ling wasn't worthy of their attention at the moment. It's quite boring. Young Lin and Luli Empress aren't participating in this battle for the quota. They're all juniors. I don't think there will be any intense battles. A tall and sturdy man said. "Senior brother, that might not be the case. That guy called Lin Ling is actually quite interesting." Someone beside him laughed. If Lin Ling was here, he would definitely recognize him. He was De, whom he had met in the realm of the gods. De's divine fetus had only increased by 1 grade in the divine circle. However, he managed to find some indigo spiritual flowers from somewhere and forcefully increased his talent. He even told the outside world that it was caused by the investiture of the gods in the 9 continents. Thus, he didn't end up as miserable as Xueqi. Although some people knew that he had secretly cheated in order not to embarrass himself, they didn't expose him in the end for the sake of his reputation. "Lin Ling, he's even worse than me. De's cold eyes looked at the corridor in front of him. Before the divine circle, Lin Ling had fought to a draw with him. Now, it was time for him to collect some interest. After all, he knew that Lin Ling was even worse than him. He wasn't recognized by the divine circle and didn't even have a single increase in his divine fetus. If he didn't humiliate such an opponent when he met De, it would be a waste of the Titanic Crescent God's reputation. After a while, an ancient stone door appeared in front of them. The people didn't stop and disappeared into it. When they reappeared, they were in a void. Formless void. Looking at the void, the black deity, who was the first to arrive, couldn't help but laugh. He knew that this was a void that the thunder god had found by himself. The area of this place was incomparably large, and there were many realms. However, this void wasn't stable, and there were no living creatures or spiritual energy. It was like an empty shell. After all, this place was only suitable for mortals to live in. Warriors didn't like to come to a world without spiritual qi. Everyone, let's compete here. Lei Gong stopped and looked at the crowd indifferently. The gods nodded and waved their right hands. A crystal jade tablet appeared in the hands of the people who were about to fight. Upon closer inspection, there were about 50 people who were going to fight. Among them were trial takers, divine generals, divine paladins, and other experts. Lin Ling's hand flashed and the crystal jade tablet that Lei Gong had thrown to him appeared. Upon closer inspection, the crystal jade tablet had a black 9 character on it. This caused Lin Ling to sweep his gaze around. He immediately discovered that the vast and boundless void had quietly separated into 5 regions. This also meant that there would be 10 people in each region. If one could become the first or second strongest person in that region, then they would also be able to obtain a quota. Moreover, when Lin Ling infused his boundary essence into the crystal jade tablet, he immediately knew the rules. When the 10 spots appeared, they could also challenge each other. Moreover, others could also challenge them. If they still won, then the spot would be secured. Lin Ling nodded and put away the crystal jade tablet. However, just as he put it away, the name 9 sounded in the northern region. This meant that Lin Ling was about to start his first battle. Immediately, Lin Ling flew towards the northern region. Look, the first battle in the northern region is actually Lin Ling. That guy's luck is really bad. He missed the apotheosized divine seal and disappeared for 150 years. How can he be a match for others now? I think the battle will end in less than 30 minutes. Haha, you think too highly of Lin Ling. Even if this Lin Ling was placed 150 years ago, in reality, he was only a... Everyone stared at the northern region and discussed animatedly. Among the 4 gods, other than Titanic Crescent God, Lei Gong, Eugene, and Kirishin also looked towards the northern region. Obviously, they all knew of Lin Ling. Chapter 42-47. Everyone was looking around to see who Lin Ling's first opponent was. Number 32? Why does it sound so familiar? Wait, it can't be me, right? In the crowd, the 7th prince frowned. He suddenly picked up the crystal jade token in his hand and looked at it. His eyes twitched. Because he was Lin Ling's first opponent. This undoubtedly made him curse his bad luck. After all, he also knew that he was no match for Lin Ling. Not long ago, he had crawled through Lin Ling's crotch. He braced himself and flew toward the northern area. The 7th prince's face became gloomier. However, the crowd didn't know that he had fought with Lin Ling. Instead, they were chatting with great interest. The 7th prince, haha. Back then, during the investiture of the gods, he gave birth to divine light and returned to his divine position. That Lin Ling is in for a hard time. Many people laughed and said, looking forward to Lin Ling's first battle after he was eliminated. The 7th prince's divine fetus is not weak. In his previous life, he was the emperor of Mountain West Sea. Although he was a lesser god, the 7th prince now has a 3rd-grade divine fetus. Those who knew Lin Ling were mumbling at this moment. They also wanted to see Lin Ling's strength through this battle. I admit defeat. However, just as everyone was thinking, a gloomy voice suddenly floated out. The 7th prince raised his hand and said helplessly. The entire void was silent. 7th prince, what the fuck are you doing? A powerful trial taker roared. They had wanted to see a fierce battle, but they had already taken off their pants, and this was what the 7th prince was going to show them? The 7th prince stood not far away from Lin Ling and stared at Lin Ling. Seeing Lin Ling's relaxed expression, he gritted his teeth and left with a dark face, ignoring the crowd's mockery. Although losing without a battle would make people laugh at him, he knew that if he was defeated by Lin Ling, there would be even more mockery. How could this be? Seeing the 7th prince leave without looking back, the crowd became even more suspicious. Could it be that the 7th prince was deliberately going easy on him? No one could understand. Although the 7th prince wasn't the strongest participant, he was still stronger than Lin Ling. After all, he had cultivated for 100 years more than Lin Ling, so it was impossible for him to be afraid of Lin Ling. Just like that, Lin Ling slowly left the northern region under everyone's gloomy gazes. As soon as he left, fierce battles broke out in other areas. However, Such battles had already been held during the last trip to the 8 gods' heavenly palace. Moreover, there were no top challengers participating this time, so the spectators weren't very interested in the battles. Number 9. At this moment, the voice drifted out again. At this moment, many people's eyes were burning. Number 9. Isn't that Lin Ling from before? In an instant, everyone's gaze turned towards the northern region. Compared to the other battles, they were more looking forward to Lin Ling's second battle. It seems like Lin Ling's battle is very interesting. Lei Gong's gaze swept over the crowd, and he smiled faintly. There was a hint of mockery in his smile because only he knew how strong Lin Ling was. With the 4th layer Lightning Pond true body, it wouldn't be difficult for him to obtain a spot. Therefore, he also hoped that Lin Ling would meet a strong opponent to prove himself. Number 28. Soon, Lin Ling's opponent appeared. Everyone's gaze swept over the crowd again. This guy called number 28 shouldn't disappoint them, right? Even Lin Ling was extremely curious as he waited for number 28. However, a figure walked out from the crowd. Not only was he not in high spirits, but he had an ugly expression on his face. Staring at that person, Lin Ling was stunned once again. That person was Wangu Yanhui, who he had beaten up in the Devil Forest. At this moment, Wangu Yanhui was in a bad mood. Why was he called out? This was on purpose, right? He had come to the northern region in anger, and then glared at Lin Ling. At the same time, Lin Ling was also staring at Wangu Yanhui's teeth, as if he was itching to make a move. Wangu Yanhui subconsciously pursed his lips. Last time in the Devil Forest, Lin Ling had beaten him up and broke his teeth. It took him a lot of effort to patch them up, and they were perfect. Now, Lin Ling wanted to destroy his teeth again? With this thought in mind, Wangu Yanhui, under everyone's watchful eyes, made a move that left everyone dumbfounded. He raised his hand and angrily shouted, "I admit defeat." The moment his voice fell, the entire void space was dumbfounded. Even Titanic Crescent God looked at Lin Ling for the first time. It was not easy to make 2 opponents admit defeat in a row. Where did this Lin Ling guy come from? It was obvious that among the 4 gods, the Titanic Crescent God was the only one who was unfamiliar with Lin Ling. Therefore, they were all at a loss. What's going on? Admitting defeat in a row, could it be that this Lin Ling is a very powerful expert? Someone from the Titanic Crescent God's side asked in confusion. Powerful my ass. Big brother, you don't know. This Lin Ling was the fastest growing participant under Lei Gong, but that's all. During the investiture of the gods in the 9 prefectures, he was rejected by the God Circle. After that, he hid for 150 years, and only now did he come out. Bullshit. If he was rejected by the God Circle, why did 2 other participants admit defeat? That is a trial taker, not a holy knight of God. Sai, you don't believe my words. You can go ask Lord Eugene and Lord Kirishin. They all know about this. If that's the case, I'll make a bet with you. Do you dare? I think this Lin Ling will definitely win. I'll bet a holy spring. Wow, big brother, you're betting so much? However, I don't have a holy spring, but I do have 3 sapphire spiritual flowers. I'll bet with you. The people from the Titanic Crescent God side and the people from Eugene's side began to make bets. Seeing this, many people became interested. After all, in their opinion, Lin Ling's 2 victories were due to luck. Perhaps he had bribed someone, but such a bribe would not last until the end. With this thought in mind, many people also touched their pockets, wanting to see if there were any valuable treasures to take out for a bet. After all, after Lin Ling's 2 defeats, there weren't many opponents left in the northern region. It would be too late if they didn't bet now. However, just as they were about to join in, another voice came from the northern region. It was Lin Ling's new opponent. I admit defeat. I admit defeat. This time, it was Jin Xuanzi from Lei Gong's hall who admitted defeat. Although Lei Gong recommended Lin Ling and Shangyi, others could still compete for the spots. This time, Lin Ling easily won 3 matches in a row. He admitted defeat again? That's the 3rd one. Third. Chapter 42-48. Because up until now, those who had challenged Lin Ling included the trial takers of the 3 great gods, yet all of them had admitted defeat. Lin Ling's methods of bribery were really too terrifying. He didn't know that Jin Xuanzi had fought Lin Ling before, so he knew that he was no match for Lin Ling. Therefore, in order to avoid damaging their friendship, he decided to admit defeat. Let's bet again. I don't believe in heresy. 5 sapphire spirit flowers and all your previous bets. Do you dare? Roar. That person roared angrily again and glanced at Xueqi. After seeing Xueqi nod his head, he became even more confident. This was because the black flag from before had also told him that Lin Ling's previous victories were all due to luck. All right, I'm not afraid of you. Roar. The expert from the Titanic Crescent God Shrine had already tasted the sweetness of victory, so he naturally agreed. Lord Di Luo, I'll also bet, can I? Roar. Obviously, the others were familiar with Lin Ling, so they also placed their bets. They didn't believe that Lin Ling could keep winning. Yes, the more the better. Roar. The expert from the Titanic Crescent God Shrine nodded generously. Obviously, he wasn't familiar with Lin Ling, otherwise, he wouldn't have dared to be so confident. However, after seeing Lin Ling's consecutive victories, he really believed that Lin Ling was an expert. This time, I'm going to win back my capital and interest. Roar. The person who placed his bet touched his nose, looking forward to the next round. The spectators didn't pay attention to the battles in the other regions. They were all staring at the northern region, waiting for Lin Ling's battle. Lin Ling had already won 3 battles in a row, which meant that there were only 6 challengers left in the northern region. Therefore, it wouldn't be long before it was his turn again. When Lin Ling heard the number 9, he flew towards the northern region with a gloomy expression. Although his current opponents weren't worthy of his full strength, he didn't want to keep winning without a fight. He wanted to at least defeat 1 or 2 opponents, so that he could report back to Lei Gong. However, he didn't expect that his opponents would all be defeated by him in the past, so he couldn't show his full strength. Number 37. At this time, Lin Ling's opponent also appeared. Then, a phoenix cry resounded and a strange light flashed. A delicate woman appeared in front of Lin Ling. Little South. Lin Ling's eyes lit up. Congratulations to Senior Lin Ling for returning, and congratulations to Senior Lin Ling for winning 4 matches in a row. After Little South appeared, he said to Lin Ling with a smile. Haha, those were all just luck. Hearing this, Lin Ling smiled faintly, then frowned. It seemed that he had only won 3 rounds, but Little South said that he had won 4 rounds in a row. Could it be? I admit defeat. Just as Lin Ling thought of this, Little South raised her hand. Chi. This time, the entire void was filled with gasps of astonishment. Even Lei Gong's pupils constricted. Unknowingly, Lin Ling had won 4 rounds and eliminated almost half of the people in the northern region. One person had eliminated half of the participants. It had to be said that this was an achievement to be proud of. However, throughout the entire process, Lin Ling did not break a single sweat. This victory was a little strange. Seeing Lin Ling leave the northern region, the people of the various gods were obviously even more depressed. Why didn't they get such a good opportunity? They would definitely beat Lin Ling into a dog. I won again. Brother, I'm indebted to you for the bet. Ah, my sapphire spiritual flower. My holy spring. Those who lost money stared at Lin Ling's departure, dumbfounded. At this moment, they were about to cry because they didn't understand how they lost. Could it be that Lin Ling had disappeared for 100 years to curry favor with others, so those who participated in the battle gave him enough face? However, how did Lin Ling curry favor with them? To be able to make those people give up their spots in the 8 gods' heavenly palace and directly admit defeat and shame, the price of this curry favor must not be small. Although many people couldn't figure it out even if they racked their brains, it was undeniable that Lin Ling had indeed won. What a lucky guy. Sigh. Even Lei Gong sighed helplessly because he didn't want Lin Ling to keep meeting opponents who admitted defeat. Rumble. At this moment, in the eastern region, the battle was incomparably fierce. Waves of light shot out in all directions and landed on the distant realms, directly destroying them. This was also the reason why they chose to fight here. If it was in the void of the 9 continents, with the help of these godlike experts, the 9 continents would have been destroyed. How shocking! The people also watched the battle that seemed to be breaking through the void and licked their lips. I admit defeat. Finally, an old man's helpless voice rang out. This old man was a genuine divine general with great strength, but in the end, he still couldn't resist his opponent's attack. And his opponent was De. The people also stared at De, who was flying back, and their eyes continued to flicker. Through the previous battle, they saw that De had a third-grade divine fetus, and his divine power was incomparably fierce, already reaching 400 strands. 400 strands of divine power. Back then, when he had 100 strands of divine power, he was already comparable to the leader of the 9 continents' 10 evils. With 400 strands of divine power, he could definitely enter the ranks of the 9 continents' 10 martial gods. Of course, that was back then. Now, the 9 continents' investiture of the gods was different from the past. It seems that in the eastern region, De will get a spot. Someone sighed and said. De, like Lin Ling, had won several battles in a row. However, De relied on his real strength, while Lin Ling relied on luck. Thinking of this, they also subconsciously looked at the northern region. However, at this time, Lin Ling also entered the arena again. After all, there weren't many opponents left for him. And this time, who would it be? For a moment, the people were also looking forward to it. Number 8. At this time, the voice finally rang out. Lin Ling, you're really unlucky. This time, I don't know if I'll go easy on you. At the same time, under Lei Gong's screen, a man suddenly laughed and was actually a little excited. Beside him, Sister Zhan Young Lin, and the others all looked at this man and were shocked. Could this number 8 be Zhong Shan? If people who were familiar with Lin Ling were here, they would definitely be shocked because so far, Lin Ling's opponents were all related to Lin Ling. It was unknown if someone did it on purpose or if it was the will of the heavens. Zhong Shan awakened a third-grade divine fetus during the investiture of the gods last time, and he even has the divine light. In his previous life, he was a lower god. I heard that in these years, he has improved his divine fetus to the 4th grade. As for Lin Ling, I'm afraid it will be difficult for him to defeat his opponent. After returning from the arena, Saint Guerin frowned and looked worried. This was because he knew very well that Zhong Shan was now stronger than him. He was already ranked in the top 5 among the 10 trial testers under Lei Gong's screen. Chapter 42-49. Brother Xueqi, what are you doing? At this time, a cold voice came from the side. It was Sister Zhen. She was playing with her fingernails and said indifferently. In the past, Xueqi was the 2nd place of the trial takers, and Sister Zhen had always been respectful to him. However, after 100 years, her attitude towards Xueqi had obviously changed. It's not up to you to tell me what to do. Xueqi was angry. He was a good friend, so he ignored Sister Zhen and looked at Lin Ling in the distance and transmitted his voice. Lin Ling, be careful. Zhong Shan is going to teach you a lesson. If you think you can't win, you might as well admit defeat. In the northern region, Lin Ling was floating there. After hearing Xueqi's words, he felt warmth in his heart. However, he shook his head and transmitted his voice. Don't worry, I will break his teeth. Xueqi's pupils shrank. Could it be that Lin Ling's strength wasn't as simple as it seemed? Because most of Lin Ling's opponents had admitted defeat, Xueqi didn't know how strong Lin Ling was. However, now that Lin Ling had said so, it meant that Lin Ling was stronger than Zhong Shan. Among the 10 trial takers under Lei Gong, Lin Ling could be ranked in the top 5. Thinking of this, Xueqi couldn't believe it. Ha ha ha, Lin Ling, I'm coming to challenge you. At this moment, Zhong Shan took a step forward, leaving behind countless afterimages as he floated towards the northern region. His voice was like thunder. Obviously, he did it on purpose to attract everyone's attention. Of course, the effect was very good. Everyone looked towards the northern region and revealed a playful smile. They had a feeling that Zhong Shan wouldn't go easy on them this time. Master Di Luo, do you still dare to bet with me? I will bet with all my savings, do you dare? At this time, the martial artist who had lost everything shouted. After he finished speaking, he began to borrow treasures everywhere. This was because he had already lost everything he had, and now he wanted to win it all back. The other people also cast their eyes over, as if they wanted to join the bet as well. But of course, they didn't think it was possible. After all, they could tell that Zhong Shan wouldn't let Lin Ling win, so Di Luo probably wouldn't dare to bet again. Sure. However, Lord Di Luo agreed without hesitation, as if he still didn't know that Lin Ling had wasted the past 100 years. Ha ha ha, Lord Di Luo is indeed straightforward. Hearing this, the expert who had previously lost all his fortune was naturally extremely excited. Rumble! At the same time, a fierce battle had already begun in the northern region. After Zhongshan arrived at the northern region, he immediately released all of his world essence and released his divine embryo. This divine embryo was not a third-grade divine embryo but a fourth-grade one. A huge, colorful rooster appeared. It spread its wings and soared into the sky. Its claws were thick and big, and its eyes shone with a sharp light. Rings of divine light were constantly being emitted from its body. This was the divine embryo of the Pleiades star official, one of the 28 constellations in the Age of Gods. In those days, this Pleiades star official was a genuine mid-god. Wow! Sensing that terrifying divine embryo, many people were also in an uproar. Because they had only heard of Zhongshan's strength, and this was the first time they had seen it. But they didn't expect Zhongshan to be so powerful. That year, we parted ways in the demonic forest. Now it's time for Zhongshan to regain his face. Over at Yojin's side, Xueqi said with a faint smile. That year in the demonic forest, Lin Ling didn't give Zhongshan any face at all, which made Zhongshan want to kill Lin Ling. Now, after 100 years, the grudge between the two of them was finally coming to an end. Not far away from Xueqi, Luli Empress's face was calm as she looked ahead. She knew that Zhongshan wouldn't let Lin Ling win, so she wanted to see Lin Ling's strength through Zhongshan. Would Lin Ling win or lose? Defeat him, break his teeth. Wangu Yanhui waved his fists. He was even more excited than if he was going to fight. After all, he knew that he might not be able to defeat Lin Ling, but his big brother Zhongshan definitely could. Caw caw caw. All of a sudden, the mountain-like rooster let out a deafening cry. The rooster's cry turned the world white. Endless rays of light shot out, and the pitch-black void started to brighten. The rooster's cry was like a call to the blazing sun. These rays were incomparably sharp, piercing through the void and landing on the distant world's surface. Poochie 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 sounds could be heard as the ancient continents were pierced through by the rays of light. Following that, the continents shattered into pieces. Moreover, it wasn't just one continent that was shattered, but tens of thousands of continents. This was also the meaning of the rooster's cry destroying the world. Lin Ling narrowed his eyes as he stood in the middle of the terrifying light storm. Zhongshan's divine embryo was strong. There were no weak points. Moreover, his godly force was also very strong, reaching the level of 300 rays. If Lin Ling didn't use anything, he could only fight Zhongshan to a draw with just his Dantian and realm essence. But it was a pity that Lin Ling had 7 great Dantians. In addition to his terrifying physical strength, he didn't even need to use any skills. He could crush Zhongshan with just his physical strength. Xiao xiao xiao. Lin Ling's body was like a willow catkin, leaving behind afterimages as he easily dodged the thousands of rays of light. Everyone thought that Lin Ling would be defeated, but the scene in front of them caused their eyes to narrow. They saw that Lin Ling was actually unharmed, and the densely packed rays of light were all dodged by Lin Ling. It's time to end this. At this moment, Lin Ling also muttered to himself. His body rushed towards the rays of light, dodging left and right, and at the same time, his right hand suddenly clenched into a fist. Pang! When he clenched his fist, an unstoppable force was also brewing. It was mixed with the realm essence of the 7 great Dantians, the physical strength of 300,000 worlds, and the power of 300 rays of godly force. In Lin Ling's opinion, Zhongshan could only force him to use this much strength. Zhongshan was not qualified to use more than that. You're courting death. Seeing Lin Ling rushing over, Zhongshan also sneered in disdain. He stretched out 2 fingers and attacked Lin Ling. At this moment, the surrounding rays of light receded like the tide and gathered in his 2 fingers, causing his fingertips to be extremely dazzling. If one took a closer look, a huge rooster appeared behind him, making his finger look like the rooster's beak. Pai li pa la. And when he shot towards Lin Ling, the surrounding void cracked open, as if it was rubbing against everything in its path. In Zhongshan's eyes, Lin Ling was courting death. After all, Lin Ling was trying to fight him head-on. Whether it was cultivation, divine embryo, or even divinity, Zhongshan was superior to Lin Ling. However, despite his good intentions, He was about to be disappointed in the end. Boom! The fist and finger collided, and a terrifying storm erupted, landing in the distant world and destroying everything. And in the storm, the crisp sound of bones breaking could be heard. Zhongshan's entire arm was broken, and Lin Ling's fist did not stop, ruthlessly smashing into Zhongshan's face. Xiao xiao xiao. More than a dozen teeth mixed with blood were spat out. Zhongshan flew backwards, and his heart was pounding, as if he could not believe it. Chapter 4250. Boom! Zhongshan's chest was hit by the punch. He bent over like a prawn and fell straight down. However, Lin Ling moved and appeared below Zhongshan again. He kicked at the sky and this time, his foot landed on Zhongshan's but sent Zhongshan flying into the sky again. Then, there was a series of explosions. The sound of a violent battle echoed out, causing the void to fall silent. All 4 battlefields were now looking at the northern region. That was because it was a one-sided beating. Zhongshan is a 4th-grade divine fetus and has divine light. How could he be beaten like a dog by Lin Ling? This is too unreal. Zhongshan's teeth were knocked out. Could it be that Lin Ling is also a 4th-grade divine fetus? I don't think he is a 4th-grade divine fetus, but he is at least a 3rd-grade one. Most importantly, Lin Ling's boundary essence is very fierce. It is several times stronger than Zhongshan's. Everyone's face was solemn and shocked. They ignored Zhongshan and stared at the blue-robed youth who was constantly attacking. That youth had disappeared for 150 years. Everyone thought that he had missed the time to cultivate and the investiture of the gods. However, Lin Ling was telling them that even if he had missed everything, he could still suppress everyone. Moreover, he was even stronger than before. At least, Lin Ling might not have been able to defeat Zhongshan. This guy. Xueqi clenched his teeth in disbelief. Lin Ling had not been with the 4 gods for 100 years. Without the 4 gods' training, Lin Ling should not be so strong. Interesting. He is still very strong. The glazed female empress narrowed her eyes. She was both surprised and felt that it was normal. She was surprised that Lin Ling, who had disappeared for 100 years, was still so strong. She felt that it was normal that Lin Ling, who was the reincarnation of Li Xiaoyao, should be so strong. Without a doubt, Lin Ling's first battle shocked the void. The 4 gods seemed to have exploded. Those who had underestimated Lin Ling now knew that Lin Ling was not much weaker than them. Lin Ling is so strong. On Lei Gong's side, Xueqi, Sister Zhen, and the others frowned. Especially Sister Zhen. Her expression was ugly. She was looking forward to seeing Lin Ling being beaten up miserably, causing Lei Gong to lose face. Then, Lei Gong would chase Lin Ling away in a fit of rage. But now, the one being beaten up was Zhongshan. His nose was broken and his teeth were shattered. It was a miserable sight. Could it be that Lin Ling didn't bribe those people to admit defeat, but rather because they knew of Lin Ling's strength? As for Xueqi, he suddenly had a thought. At this moment, this thought spread like the tide among the crowd. Many people subconsciously looked at Wangu Yanhui and understood his painstaking efforts. As for Wangu Yanhui, he didn't pay any attention to the crowd's gazes. Instead, he stared at Zhongshan, who was being brutally beaten up, and his body shuddered. He could see that Zhongshan's teeth were all broken, and he subconsciously licked his teeth. Fortunately, he had admitted defeat, otherwise, he would have lost just now. The teeth that had been mended were probably going to be broken again. Admit defeat. Zhongshan, who was continuously beaten up, finally spoke with difficulty. In fact, Lin Ling's methods were like a storm, and he didn't even have time to speak. As soon as the word admit defeat came out, Lin Ling looked at Zhongshan with a mocking smile and left in large strides. I lost again. Looking at Lin Ling who was flying back, the man who had placed a bet before sat down powerlessly in the void. His eyes were blank. In order to win back his capital and interest, he had borrowed a large amount of treasures and paid interest. Now, he had lost again. So unless he used his life to pay it back, how could he pay it back? Haha, thank you. Master Di Luo laughed out loud, which made people feel that he was very mysterious, because this man actually knew Lin Ling's strength, which was way too scary. Unfortunately, no one knew that Lord Di Luo was just a blind cat meeting a dead mouse. He thought that Lin Ling would win, so he bet that Lin Ling would win. Fortunately, Lin Ling didn't let him down. It seems like Lin Ling will have no opponents in the northern region. Then, many people frowned and said. The previous battle had shown Lin Ling's strength. Among the 50 people, although Lin Ling wasn't the strongest, he was still one of the top. It wouldn't be difficult for him to get a place. Moreover, Lin Ling had already become the strongest in the northern region. Lin Ling, congratulations. After Lin Ling returned, Xueqi immediately said excitedly. His face was still full of surprise. Lin Ling saw that Xueqi wasn't jealous at all. This made him feel that Xueqi was a friend worth making. He smiled and said, "You can do it too. Next, I'll wait for you to go to the 8 gods' heavenly palace together." Okay. Xueqi couldn't help but feel confident. Sister Zhen, young Lin, and the other trial takers were still looking at Lin Ling in surprise. Only Lei Gong was calm, because he knew that Lin Ling hadn't used his trump card yet. Now that the first place in the northern region had been confirmed, those from the Little South finally started to fight for the second place in the northern region. The other regions had more or less confirmed the first place, and many people were fighting for the second place. Number 24. At this moment, a voice came from the eastern region. Next, Xueqi, who was next to Lin Ling, narrowed his eyes because he was number 24. Xueqi, do your best. Lin Ling patted Xueqi's shoulder and cheered him on. Xueqi smiled and didn't say anything. He nodded heavily and flew to the eastern region. Now that the first place in the eastern region had been confirmed, Xueqi wanted to fight for the second place. Number 7. At almost the same time, Xueqi's opponent appeared. Then, a man in heavy armor took heavy steps and flew to the eastern region like a god. It's Emperor 13. Many people exclaimed when they saw that person. This person was the divine general of the Titanic Crescent God. Although he wasn't a trial taker, his strength was stronger than most of the trial takers. Cripple him. Just as Emperor 13 was flying towards the void, a voice rang in his ears. Emperor 13 smiled coldly and nodded his head. The voice belonged to De. Previously, he saw that Lin Ling and Xueqi seemed to be very close. Moreover, Lin Ling had taught his people a lesson in the divine world. Therefore, he wanted to pay Lin Ling back. Of course, he did not see eye to eye with Xueqi. After all, Xueqi was more powerful than him back then and had once oppressed him. Now, he naturally wanted to properly humiliate this once powerful challenger. Emperor 13. At this moment, Xueqi stared at his opponent in the northern region. He had fought and defeated Emperor 13 before. If he remembered correctly, Emperor 13's divine embryo was very destructive. It had the power of vibration. Unfortunately, Xueqi was so strong that the vibration didn't affect him at all. Bang! Chapter 42-51. Saint Guy is still a little weaker. Sigh. Lin Ling stared at the eastern region. He could tell that Saint Guy was in trouble. After all, his divine embryo was still a grade weaker than Saint Guy. Lin Ling couldn't help but look at the thunder god. He found that the old man looked calm, but deep in his eyes, there was a glimmer of worry. That kind of feeling was like a father watching his child go to war and worrying for his child. Saint Guy, you must win. Sigh. This caused Lin Ling to clench his fists. With a difference of one divine embryo, on the surface, it seemed impossible for Saint Returning Unity to win. But in a battle between martial artists, strength was not the most important factor. Instead, skill, mentality and so on were important. Now, it all depended on whether or not Saint Returning Unity could grasp this opportunity. Bang! However, Lin Ling was about to be disappointed. After another earth-shattering clash, Saint Guy was forced back and spat out a mouthful of blood. Many people could tell that Saint Guy had lost. I'll kill you. Sigh. To everyone's surprise, Saint Guy didn't admit defeat. He activated his Eastern Emperor Tai E bloodline and unleashed another powerful attack. Rainbow bridges shot out and countless rainbow bridges appeared in the sky. Then, these rainbow bridges formed a huge rainbow circle and enveloped Emperor 13. This move again. Sigh. Emperor 13 laughed coldly. Cracks appeared around his body and wriggled like worms. Upon closer inspection, one could see that it was the power of vibration. Rumble. The rainbow circle enveloped Emperor 13. However, when it got close to Emperor 13, It was shattered into pieces and fell from the sky. What? Sigh. Saint Gui's eyes narrowed. Previously, Emperor 13 had been defeated by this move. Back then, Emperor 13 had begged for mercy. But now, Emperor 13 had countered it easily. Furthermore, Saint Gui could feel that Emperor 13's power of vibration was like claws and fangs. Saint Gui, you are no longer as strong as you used to be. Sigh. At this moment, Emperor 13 took a step forward and the space in front of him shattered. Using the force of the vibrations, he entered the space and appeared in front of Xueqi. He slammed his palm forward with ferocious vibrations. For the past 100 years, he had wanted to teach Saint Gui a lesson. However, Saint Gui was Lei Gong's subordinate, so he didn't dare to act rashly. Now that he had the chance to compete for a spot, he naturally wouldn't miss this opportunity. When Saint Gui saw Emperor 13, he exclaimed in his heart, "What speed!" He could naturally sense that Emperor 13 had used the power of the tremors to reach him. Since things had come to this point, he gathered his boundary essence and used it to counter Emperor 13's attack. Boom! A translucent shockwave of dimensional essence was small at first. Then, with the two of them as the center, it rapidly expanded and gradually engulfed everything. The shockwave was circular, and when it expanded, it turned the surrounding rubble into powder. When it passed through the crowd, it immediately blew their long hair, but their eyes were still fixed on the center. When Emperor 13 and Xueqi's palms collided, cracks appeared around Emperor 13's palms. Then, the space around Emperor 13 started to vibrate like waves. Under the power of the tremors, Xueqi spat out a mouthful of blood. He also felt the terrifying power of the tremors flowing through his palms and into his entire body. It was as if his entire body had been struck by lightning. His meridians, bones, and organs all shook. Xueqi, are you still not going to admit defeat? Looking at Emperor 13, who was standing in front of Xueqi, he sneered maliciously. The power of the tremors in his palms grew stronger, causing Xueqi to spit out another mouthful of blood. However, just as everyone thought that the battle was over, Xueqi still refused to admit defeat. His eyes were red, as though he was risking his life. I haven't lost yet. Rumble! As he roared furiously, an all-powerful boundary essence suddenly erupted. The strength of the boundary essence was actually slightly denser than the boundary essence of a peak martial god. Did this guy burn his elixir field? Someone exclaimed. Burning one's boundary essence was a technique that a martial ancestor could use. However, very few people were willing to burn their boundary essence. Firstly, the side effects of burning one's boundary essence were severe. Secondly, burning one's boundary essence required some time. In a battle between experts, that short amount of time was enough to change the outcome of the battle. Although Emperor 13 was strong, he had not defeated Xueqi in one go. Therefore, Xueqi had enough time to burn his boundary essence. Of course, Emperor 13 had not expected Xueqi to be so desperate. This was because he knew that this was a self-destructive technique. If he was not careful, his divine embryo would be destroyed as well. Poor Xueqi. Burning your boundary essence is the only thing you can do? You are like a stray dog now. Emperor 13 roared as boundary essence surged out of his body. His cultivation had already surpassed the peak martial god realm and he was half a step into the deity realm. After the boundary essence surged out of his body, a surge of divine energy surged out of his body. It had increased by 100 strands of divine energy. Now, his divine energy had reached 400 strands and he was on the same level as Emperor 13. This was the vibration of the boundary essence. Boom! He was not afraid of Xueqi burning his boundary essence. He slammed his palm forward and destroyed Xueqi's boundary essence. His palm landed heavily on Xueqi's chest. Stray dog, do you have to force me? Don't blame me if you don't admit defeat. That palm strike shattered Saint Gui's ribcage. His burning realm essence suffered a heavy blow. I have not lost yet. However, Xueqi had to give it his all. He had already let Lord Lei Gong down the last time. This was his chance, but he had met Emperor 13, who was stronger than him. He was going to be eliminated again. He couldn't accept it. He did not want to see Lord Lei Gong's disappointed eyes. Bang! Another palm landed on Xueqi's chest and a terrifying shockwave tore Xueqi's elixir field apart. Wah! Everyone was in an uproar when they saw this. This was the most intense battle so far. Although Lin Ling had beaten up Zhong Shan not too long ago, he had only suffered superficial injuries. Now, his elixir field had been damaged. Not admitting defeat? Emperor 13 slammed his palm forward again. He was going crazy. Since Xueqi was so stubborn, he would cripple him. Rumble. Emperor 13 slammed his palm forward 7 times, causing space to shatter. Xueqi was forced to retreat. Xueqi's elixir field had been destroyed and he was now a cripple. Everyone was shocked. However, since the 4 gods did not say anything, no one stopped Emperor 13. The Thunder God's face was calm, as if he hadn't seen this scene. However, his eyes were trembling, and his heart was bleeding. Chapter 42-52. This child. The Thunder God muttered to himself. He thought of the past, of the little beggar he had picked up on the side of the road. Do you want to become stronger? That was what Lei Gong had said to Xueqi. Yes, I don't want to be poor anymore. As long as you can make me stronger, you will be my father. Xueqi looked at Lei Gong stubbornly. Because of that one sentence, Xueqi still saw Lei Gong as his teacher and father. He was the only one who truly wanted to work for Lei Gong. He didn't want to replace Lei Gong. Boom. At this moment, another explosion was heard. Lei Gong's eyes trembled. He finally said, I'll admit defeat for him. Deal. He knew that Xueqi wouldn't admit defeat unless he was dead. He, the Thunder God, could no longer bear to see Saint Yi suffer such torment and die before his very eyes. Since Lord Lei Gong has spoken, I will naturally give you face. Emperor 13 grabbed Xueqi's neck and hit him with his other hand. Xueqi spat out a mouthful of blood. Emperor 13 then laughed. Hee, weaklings have no right to speak. He wanted to send Xueqi flying with a slap, but a hand grabbed his arm before he could do so. Emperor 13's face changed. It happened so fast that he hadn't noticed it. He turned around and saw a man standing beside Xueqi. His blue robe was fluttering in the wind and his face was as cold as ice. Although he wasn't familiar with this person, he recognized him. He was Lin Ling, one of Lei Gong's subordinates. If we weren't fighting for a spot, I would have killed you, Lin Ling said with a murderous tone as he grabbed Emperor 13's arm. Lin Ling, don't do anything rash. However, at this time, Lei Gong's voice floated over. Lin Ling suppressed the anger in his heart. He carried Xueqi on his back and flew towards Lei Gong. Seeing this, De in the distance sneered and said indifferently, stray dog. As for those who had a grudge against Lin Ling, seeing Lin Ling lose face, they gloated. However, Lin Ling ignored everyone's sneers. He carried Xueqi on his back and asked, Xueqi, are you feeling better? I'm sorry, I let you down. Xueqi was extremely weak. After saying those words, he fainted. However, Lin Ling could feel a drop of warm tear flowing down his neck. It was Saint Yi's tear. Xueqi had lost long ago. However, he was unwilling to admit defeat. Hence, he burned his boundary origin to win the battle. In the end, he was crippled by Emperor 13. The chances of recovering from being crippled in the martial god realm were 1 in 10,000. After all, it was extremely difficult to break through the martial god realm. Xueqi knew this himself. However, he was willing to take a gamble. Unfortunately, the outcome had disappointed him. As for Emperor 13, if he was a righteous man, he would definitely know Xueqi's intentions. He could defeat Xueqi, but he would never humiliate or cripple Xueqi. Lord Lei Gong, Xueqi. Lin Ling sighed as he came before Lei Gong. Lei Gong looked deeply at Xueqi on Lin Ling's back. However, his expression did not change. He waved his hand and said, Take him to heal. All right. Although his expression did not change, he felt as if his heart was being stabbed by a knife. He wanted to kill Emperor 13. However, Xueqi did not admit defeat. This was something that everyone had witnessed. Hence, even though he hated Xueqi, there was nothing he could do. After Xueqi's defeat, the winners of the eastern region appeared. If it wasn't for Emperor 13, Xueqi would definitely have gotten a slot. Next, the winners of the western region, southern region and central region appeared. As a result, the truth of the top 10 spots was revealed. There were trial takers as well as divine generals among the top 10. Next, they would have to accept a challenge from the 40 people who had been defeated. If one of them could defeat one of the top 10, the defeated person would be stripped of his qualifications. If the challenger won, he would continue to fight. 2 challengers would be able to get a slot. This was to prevent cheating. For example, if Lin Ling had not defeated Zhong Shan, everyone would have thought that he had cheated. The 10 people who will enter the 8 Gods' Heaven Palace, please come out and accept the challenge. Everyone only needs to win 1 battle to get a slot. A voice rang out. A voice rang out. Then, 10 figures flew out from all directions and stood in the middle of the void. Everyone's gazes were also fixed on the 10 people, quietly burning with passion. Among the 10 challengers, there were a few who were not very strong. Among the 50 challengers, they still had a chance to get a slot. I will challenge you, Meng Quan. You were in the western region and your opponents were not strong. At this moment, the first challenger appeared. It was the divine general from Eugene. Old Meng? It's not that I look down on you, but you are no match for me. The man called Meng Quan laughed disdainfully, then walked out. His eyes were filled with an icy light. It was obvious that the 2 of them had always been at odds with each other. Old Meng is an expert from the southern region. It is said that he has cultivated for tens of thousands of years and is about to break through to the martial god realm. Moreover, he has a grade 2 divine fetus and his divine energy is not weak. He is ranked in the top 300. Everyone stared at the high-spirited old Meng. As for Meng Quan, he had a grade 3 divine fetus and his divine energy was not weak either. It was just that his cultivation level was slightly lower. While the crowd was discussing, the 2 of them had already started to fight. The battle was extremely intense. After the time it took for 3 incense sticks to burn, old Meng was defeated and suffered some minor injuries. Do you think I am still as weak as I was in the past? Looking at the injured old Meng, Meng Quan smiled excitedly. Thank you for challenging me. Now I have obtained a slot. The 10 slots could only be challenged once. If one won, he would have a slot. Therefore, Meng Quan was naturally happy. Among the remaining challengers, there were a few who were not weak. If they challenged him, he might not be able to win. After the first place was confirmed, there were still 9 challengers left. All the challengers stared at the 9 challengers, trying to find out who was the weakest. Hee, I have always thought that the winner of the northern region depended a lot on luck. Therefore, I, Di-Shan, will challenge you. At this moment, a voice was heard. Then, a man holding a wine pot walked out with a smile. He was tall and wore heavy armor. When he gulped down the wine, he gave people a sense of heroism. Di-Shan. Chapter 42-53. However, who was he going to challenge? Currently, there were only 2 people in the northern region. One was Lin Ling, and the other was Xiao Nan. Both of them were not weak, but in the previous battle, many people still believed that Xiao Nan was more powerful. So, was Di-Shan going to challenge Lin Ling? Let's fight. Lin Ling knew that he had become a thorn in Di-Shan's side, so he spoke first. Di-Shan took a sip of wine and wanted to say something, but Lin Ling beat him to it. Excuse me, are you from the Titanic Crescent God? Di-Shan was stunned, but he nodded and said yes so. Good. Get your ass over here. I'm going to teach you a lesson. Lin Ling put his hands behind his back and said calmly. His last sentence was filled with a murderous aura. Di-Shan was stunned again. He wanted to challenge Lin Ling because Di told him that he was strong enough to defeat Lin Ling, and asked him to teach Lin Ling a lesson. However, before he could say anything, Lin Ling took the initiative to teach him a lesson. Di-Shan was one of the lucky ones. Haha. Refreshing. Refreshing. All right, I'll give you a try. Di-Shan laughed and walked towards Lin Ling. It's Lin Ling. Seeing this, many people nodded. However, Lin Ling had a higher chance of winning this battle. After all, he had defeated Zhong Shan. Of course, Di-Shan could not be underestimated. He might have hidden his trump card. Lin Ling, I've heard a lot about you. It's my honor to be able to fight with you today. As your opponent, let me give you a toast. Di-Shan stood in the air and said politely. He then threw the flagon in his hand towards Lin Ling. This wine of mine is the wine of nothingness. which I obtained from the god world. If anyone else wanted a sip, I would refuse. Today, I'm giving you a toast because I think you're a hero. Di Yishan laughed politely. Of course he also joked, however, Lin Ling, if you're afraid of being poisoned, you don't have to drink it. Anyone could tell that this was a joke. After all, Di Yishan would not dare to play with poison in front of the four gods unless he was a fool. Normally, when a generous man saw that Di Yishan was so hospitable, he would definitely take the wine and drink it to show that he was free and easy. Therefore, everyone thought that Lin Ling would definitely accept the wine. Bang! However, just as this thought appeared in his mind, Lin Ling punched out and shattered the wine gourd. The precious wine spilled into the air. Countless people opened their mouths wide. Lin Ling did not know what was good for him and did not give him face at all. Di Yishan was also stunned. Then his face darkened. After all, he obtained the wine from the god world and it was extremely precious. Moreover, he had proposed a toast to Lin Ling, but Lin Ling had shattered the flagon. Do you think that everyone is qualified to drink with me? Lin Ling said indifferently with a hint of disdain while Di Yishan was furious. Di Yishan was furious. Let's fight. Don't talk nonsense. I'm waiting to beat you up. Lin Ling ignored Di Yishan's anger. Instead, he clenched his fists tightly. Lin Ling is so arrogant. Many people were unhappy with Lin Ling's bullying. After all, not only did he break the flagon, he even said that he would beat up Di Yishan. After all, Di Yishan had no enmity with Lin Ling. Beat me up? Let's see if you have what it takes. Di Yishan had wanted to teach Lin Ling a lesson for a long time. He was just putting on an act earlier. Then, he unleashed his realm origin, divine embryo, and divine power. Begin. After unleashing all of his power, he roared loudly. However, as soon as he finished speaking, a shadow flashed toward him and punched Di Yishan's chest like a meteor. The person who appeared in front of Di Yishan was Lin Ling. That punch caused Di Yishan's stomach to churn. His realm origin, divine embryo, and other powers were completely unable to defend against that punch. Didn't you say that you want to see if I have what it takes? Lin Ling said indifferently while maintaining his posture. Then, he stretched out his other hand and grabbed Di Yishan's neck. Then he kicked out with his knee. Rumble! The kick was powerful enough to destroy 1,000 worlds. When it landed on Di Yishan's face, it broke his nose. Red, white, and yellow blood spurted out crazily. Bang! 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 Then, Lin Ling continued to beat up Di Yishan in front of countless people. Di Yishan's face was as red as a dye vat. Only now did he realize how big the gap was between him and Lin Ling. He could not even withstand a single blow. How ruthless! Seeing Lin Ling beating up Di Yishan, the people frowned. They disliked Lin Ling even more. After all, if Di Yishan was no match for Lin Ling could have defeated him. Why did he have to beat up Di Yishan so fiercely? Di Yishan was beaten beyond recognition. Only now did he realize that he could admit defeat. However, before Di Yishan could utter the word admit defeat, Lin Ling's fist landed on his face and forced the word admit defeat back into Di Yishan's stomach. Admit! Di Yishan spat out a mouthful of blood. As he flew backward, he struggled to say the second word. However, before he could say the third word, Lin Ling's thunderstorm attack came again. You want to say the third word? Dream on. Rumble. In the 4 regions, Lin Ling beat Di Yishan from the east to the south, then to the west and north. It was as if he was beating up a human sandbag. How could this still be considered a spar? This was clearly bullying. Could it be that Lin Ling is standing up for Xueqi? Suddenly, someone seemed to have realized something. This was because Di Yishan was a member of the Titanic Crescent God. Previously, Di Yishan had humiliated Xueqi. Therefore, Lin Ling was paying back an eye for an eye. This person's words made many people realize what was going on. This Lin Ling is so arrogant. Arrogant. Many of the gods on the Titanic Crescent God's side had cold looks in their eyes. Lei Gong narrowed his eyes. He understood Lin Ling's bitter smile. He did not expect Lin Ling to be so vengeful. He also did not expect Lin Ling to be such a good friend. He had only met Xueqi a few times, but Lin Ling was willing to stand up for him. Of course he was touched. He knew that Lin Ling was not only standing up for Xueqi, but also for him, Lei Gong. It's about time. After an unknown amount of time, a voice finally drifted over. This time, it was the Titanic Crescent god who had spoken. However, he still had a smile on his face. No one knew if he was angry or not. Since the Titanic Crescent god has spoken, I have to give you face. I will return the person to you. Chapter 42-54. Emperor 13's face turned gloomy when he received it. Stray dog? This was what he had said to Saint Guyi. Now, Lin Ling was using it on Di Shan. Hee hee. Lin Ling smiled when he saw Emperor 13's gloomy face. Although it looked like a casual smile, it was obviously a provocation. Emperor 13 gritted his teeth and carried Di Shan towards Titanic Crescent God without saying a word. Lin Ling had defeated Di Shan, which meant that he had successfully obtained a slot. This made many people jealous. Of course, many more people did not like Lin Ling. After all, Lin Ling's methods were too arrogant. Are there a lot of you who don't like me? Lin Ling seemed to know what many people were thinking and suddenly laughed. Then, without waiting for anyone to speak, he looked at the four gods and said, "How about this? The winner will also challenge. If I lose, I don't care about the slot. How about that?" What? Many people's eyes froze when they heard this. This was because Lin Ling had already obtained a slot. If he wanted to challenge someone else, wouldn't that be creating more trouble? Hee, you are already one of the top 10. Who else do you want to challenge? Are you not satisfied with torturing others? Do you want to beat up some weaklings? This time, Titanic Crescent God did not speak. Instead, it was Eugene who spoke. I am not that bored. I just want to test my strength. Lin Ling said, furthermore, I am not challenging one person. I am challenging 2 people. 2 people. The crowd was in an uproar again. Was Lin Ling going to challenge 2 people by himself? Even the 4 gods' eyes narrowed. Even the god of thunder couldn't understand why Lin Ling would do such a thing. Lin Ling ignored the crowd's shock and said, furthermore, these 2 people are from the top 10. As soon as this sentence fell, it was like a stone that caused 1,000 ripples. This was because Lin Ling had fought 2 challengers at once. This was already very shocking, but who would have thought that Lin Ling would challenge a powerhouse among the top 10? One had to know that to be able to become one of the top 10 powerhouses, their strength was naturally no small matter. Could it be? Suddenly, someone seemed to have guessed something. When the others heard his shout, they immediately became aware of it. Could it be that Lin Ling wanted to fight Emperor 13? Before they could finish their thoughts, Lin Ling pointed at 2 people. He pointed at Emperor 13 and said, one of them is you. Wah! Many people shouted. It was indeed Emperor 13. Then they started to think of the other person. However, at this moment, Lin Ling pointed again and said, the other person is you. Following Lin Ling's finger, people realized that the second person Lin Ling wanted to fight was actually Di. He was the number 1 in the eastern region. Di's pupils constricted. He was obviously very surprised. Do you dare? Lin Ling stared at Di. He had a feeling that Di had something to do with Shangyi being crippled. After all, back in the realm of the gods, Di and Lin Ling had a grudge against each other. Why not? Di laughed. He had wanted to fight Lin Ling for a long time, but he had never had the chance. Who would have thought that Lin Ling would take the initiative to fight him? Great. Seeing this, Lin Ling laughed and said, however, if I lose, I will also lose my place. So, if you lose, your places will also be cancelled. How about that? Cancelled. Di and Emperor 13 suddenly frowned and did not immediately agree. The 2 of you are fighting me alone. Are you afraid? At this moment, Lin Ling spoke again. His words finally made Di and Emperor 13 look at each other and nod heavily. Previously, they were just a little cautious. However, after Lin Ling's reminder, they realized that it was 2 against 1. One should know that if they were alone, they were confident that they could defeat Lin Ling, let alone 2. Then, without saying much, they flew towards Lin Ling. The 4 gods were silent, but they did not stop Di and Emperor 13. Obviously, they agreed. Di and Emperor 13 appeared on the left and right of Lin Ling, surrounding Lin Ling. Lin Ling, When we were in the realm of the gods, you exchanged a blow with me. Now that 100 years have passed, I wonder how much you have grown. De spoke first. You want to know? Lin Ling did not seem to know where De and Emperor 13 were standing and easily blocked him. Instead, he smiled faintly. I do want to know, but I don't know if you will tell me. De replied with a shrug. However, before Lin Ling could speak, he had already signaled Emperor 13 with his eyes. Then, the two of them attacked at the same time. The heavy armor on De's body suddenly became pitch black, drowning his entire body. Only a pitch-black shadow could be seen. However, within the shadow, streaks of red light flowed along the strange patterns and into his arm, making his arm extremely dazzling. Rumble! Around him, the void suddenly shook violently. Cracks appeared continuously, and circles of black ripples bloomed like flowers. Boom! De punched out. His scorching hot arm blasted out a terrifying light pillar, which had reached the power of 400 streaks of God. Obviously, he had used his strongest attack, wanting to kill Lin Ling with one blow. At that time, even Lei Gong would not blame him. This was because Lin Ling wanted to fight 1 against 2. Moreover, De could also say that fists and kicks had no eyes. De had accidentally killed Lin Ling because he could not hold back for a moment. On the other side, Emperor 13 did not delay. His armor shook, and after the armor floated out, it immediately turned into a meteor and bombarded Lin Ling. Taking a closer look, when the meteor flew through the air, the surrounding space rippled like water. This move was obviously more powerful than the one that had defeated Xueqi. With one on the left and one on the right, Lin Ling could be said to be in imminent danger. What? At this moment, everyone finally reacted. This was because no one had expected them to suddenly attack. Now, even if Lin Ling was prepared, he might not be able to block De's attack. Moreover, Emperor 13 was eyeing him covetously. Rumble! Rumble! Unsurprisingly, after the two experts launched their attacks, Lin Ling was immediately engulfed. The void around him exploded, and a huge void tunnel appeared. It was as though it was a void tunnel that led to the outside world. One move had created a void tunnel. This showed how ferocious it was. Everyone frantically retreated. Their clothes and hair fluttered in the wind, but they stared straight ahead. Was Lin Ling dead? Chapter 42-55. Only 2 people were concerned about Lin Ling's death. One of them was Longyang. She narrowed her eyes and a complicated look flashed in them. The other one was the Thunder God. His expression didn't change, but his eyes were flickering non-stop. Brother Lei Gong, if he dies, will you blame De and the others? Suddenly, Titanic Crescent God, who had been silent, asked with a smile. No. Lei Gong said flatly, his eyes still looking forward. That's good. Titanic Crescent God laughed. However, as soon as his laughter faded, endless white lightning started raging from the black hole in front of them. The power of a grade 5 divine fetus quietly permeated the air. At this moment, many people felt the pressure increase greatly. They stared at the void passage, their eyes filled with disbelief. Lei Gong looked at the chaotic void passage in front of him and finally smiled. He said flatly, finally it's here. He knew that it was time for Lin Ling to use his trump card. Thunder Lock Real Body. At this moment, the entire void was silent. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the chaotic power in front of them. It was like a void catastrophe. However, an oppressive atmosphere was also spreading. Many people swallowed their saliva subconsciously. As for De and Emperor 13, they frowned. Lin Ling was still alive? How could this be? In their opinion, their move could kill any martial god realm expert, unless Lin Ling was a deity. It must be fake, Emperor 13 suddenly said. However, as soon as he finished speaking, a terrifying shockwave exploded in front of them. The shockwave was like an arc that kept expanding. Boom! When the arc hit them, De and Emperor 13's hair and clothes were blown up. Their eyes narrowed and their faces started to distort. They could not control their bodies and flew backwards. Steady! They roared and controlled their realm essence to stabilize their bodies. This was because if they fell back, they would feel extremely embarrassed. That circular shockwave grew bigger and bigger. When it spread into the distance, Everyone's long hair was blown up and their pupils constricted. Is this Lin Ling's full strength? Luli Empress's eyes narrowed and flickered non-stop. No one knew what she was thinking. What the hell is this? Long Yang clenched her fists tightly. The powerful force coming from afar made her feel a huge pressure. Boom. Finally, there was a roar, and all the power receded like a tide. Then, a dot of light appeared, and it kept expanding. Gradually, a dazzling figure walked out. This person was covered in lightning, and there were 8 wings flapping behind him. The wings were made of lightning, and there were ferocious electric snakes all around. This person appeared to be awe-inspiring. And he was Lin Ling. Whoosh! As soon as he appeared, Lin Ling disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already in front of De. His fist smashed out like a meteor and landed on De's stomach. Boom! It was simply unstoppable. De spat out a mouthful of yellow bile and fell on Lin Ling's arm like a shrimp. Didn't you want to see my 100 years of cultivation? Now you've seen it. Lin Ling said indifferently without looking at him. His words made De's heart tremble violently. This was the result of Lin Ling's 100 years of cultivation. Was this still the eliminated Lin Ling? In fact, it was not only De. Now, everyone was in disbelief. This was because they had all sensed that Lin Ling was now a 5th grade innate godly fetus with a Luai's constitution. 5th grade. This had already surpassed 99% of the people. Among all the trial challengers, there were no more than 5 people who could match Lin Ling. His godly force must have reached 800 strands. He has successfully cultivated the Luai's true god. An old man muttered to himself solemnly. As his words floated out, it was as if a wave of panic had spread to everyone's hearts. 800 strands of the power of God was too terrifying. One had to know that Emperor 13 only had 400 strands of the power of God. Although De had only used 400 strands of the power of God, it was obvious that he had more than 400 strands of the power of God. He probably had 500 strands of the power of God. However, he was still unable to withstand a single blow. This is Lin Ling's full power. Didn't he fail to become a god? How did his godly fetus reach the 5th grade? 800 strands of the power of God in 100 years. If it isn't because the Luai's true body is too powerful, then it's because his comprehension ability is too terrifying. The top trial challengers were also discussing spiritedly. Boom! At this moment, Lin Ling grabbed De with one hand and pounced towards Emperor 13. His foot kicked out. The white lightning made him as fast as a ray of light. The sole of his foot appeared right in front of Emperor 13's face. Emperor 13's pupils constricted. In his eyes, a gigantic foot was kicking towards him. Dodge, I have to dodge. I can't let him kick me. Otherwise, I'll be so embarrassed. Emperor 13 roared in his heart. He activated all his realm essence in an attempt to dodge. However, he couldn't do anything about it. His body hadn't even moved, but a foot had already landed on his cheek. Bang! That foot caused Emperor 13's nose to become crooked. White lightning snakes attacked him, causing his body to tremble. He couldn't resist at all. The difference in strength was too great. Lin Ling fought 2 people at the same time. It was as easy as blowing off dust. People could only watch as Lin Ling beat up De and De. Boom! 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 Lin Ling's fists landed on De's face continuously. De spat out all his teeth. His originally handsome face was now distorted. Another tooth? This scene was undoubtedly a dream to many people. Up until now, all those who had fought with Lin Ling had had their teeth broken. Could it be that Lin Ling was born to like destroying other people's faces? How long are the 2 of you going to hide your strength? At this moment, Lin Ling suddenly spoke. Hide our strength? When De and Emperor 13 heard Lin Ling's words, they were so angry that they wanted to vomit blood. This was because they didn't hide their strength at all. They had already used all their strength. A warrior can be killed, but not humiliated. De roared. His eyes were red. Back in the realm of the gods, he had fought to a draw with Lin Ling. Now, he was being beaten up by Lin Ling. How could he take this lying down? Therefore he activated all his realm essence. Lin Ling, I'll fight you to the death. After all his strength erupted, De was like a deity. His aura was monstrous. Bang! However, just as this aura erupted, A figure appeared in front of De. At the same time, a palm was placed on his chest. A ferocious divine power erupted. After a boom, De was immediately sent flying. The aura that had just erupted also instantly withered. Still, he couldn't withstand a single blow. De, you should use all your strength. When De was sent flying, Lin Ling's voice floated over at the same time. Damn it, I've already used all my strength. De was so angry that he spat out a mouthful of blood. He couldn't help but curse. Chapter 42-56. Bam. However, just as he retreated, a knee shot over and hit his cheek, once again turning his face into a vat of dye. I say, you're really a stray dog. Lin Ling said coldly after sending Emperor 13 flying. This was what Emperor 13 had said to Saint Guyi. Now, Lin Ling was returning the favor. So Lin Ling is doing this for Saint Guyi. Many people came to a sudden realization and secretly rejoiced for Saint Guyi. It was Saint Guyi's fortune to have met Lin Ling. In the end, Emperor E and Emperor 13 were beaten up like dogs. Lin Ling held them up with one hand and looked at the four gods coldly. The four gods were silent. Lei Gong stared at Lin Ling and felt touched. Although he knew that Lin Ling was doing this for Saint Guyi, he also knew that without Saint Guyi, Lin Ling would not have used his full strength. Emperor E and Emperor 13 have lost. They are disqualified. The third and fourth person from the eastern region will take their place. I wonder if this is the rule? Lin Ling said calmly. He had challenged Emperor E and Emperor E not only to avenge Saint Guyi, but also to help Saint Guyi regain his spot. Hearing this, everyone fell silent. According to the rules, this was indeed the case. Lin Ling, you're doing this on purpose, aren't you? Hiding your strength and then eliminating others? Haha, isn't this too vicious? You're also affecting the relationship between the four gods. Suddenly, a cold voice rang out. This voice was a bit hoarse, and when it landed in people's ears, it caused them to feel a bit of pain. Hee, stop trying to drive a wedge between us. Hearing this, Lin Ling's gaze swept over the crowd. Others did not know who had spoken, but he had locked onto the person who had spoken. He said indifferently, I dare to challenge you, so I am not afraid of others' challenges. Those who are not convinced can come and challenge me. I will beat you until you are convinced. His voice was arrogant. Then, he looked at the crowd. This sentence stunned many people. No one had expected Lin Ling to be so arrogant. He dared to challenge anyone. This was only the second battle for the spot. Compared to the first battle, it was much weaker. There were many real experts here. Are you sure about what you said? Suddenly, an old man from Yoshin's side stepped forward. That man was a divine general and a highly respected figure in Yoshin's side. Naturally, his strength was incomparably powerful. He looked at Lin Ling indifferently and said. He didn't have much hatred for Lin Ling, but Lin Ling was too arrogant and had taught countless people a lesson. Therefore, he found Lin Ling an eyesore. I am. Lin Ling nodded. Hearing this, the old man looked at Lei Gong. Lei Gong was still expressionless. He did not stop him, nor did he agree. However, the old man knew that Lei Gong had chosen to ignore this matter. All right, then I will teach this person a lesson on behalf of Lord Lei Gong. I will let some people know how to behave. The old man nodded. He stepped forward and shot toward Lin Ling. A shield appeared in his hand. It shone with colorful lights. It was extremely dazzling. Dong. The shield also emitted a heavy rumbling sound. This was the Black Skeleton Flood Dragon shield. It was said that it was made by millions of black flood dragons. It was extremely rare. The old man got it by luck in the realm of the gods. Moreover, the shield was damaged. Otherwise it would be even more powerful. This is the shield used by the divine soldiers during the Battle of the Gods. Kirishin said suddenly. His thoughts went back to the past. Back then, when 100,000 divine soldiers fought against the will of the world, Ma Fongfong was holding this shield. Whoosh! Lin Ling's eyes flashed. He pointed with his right hand. Suddenly, a sharp bolt of lightning shot out. Clang! However, as soon as they descended onto the shield, they were immediately rebounded. This caused Lin Ling to be shocked. Because he'd utilized 600 strands of divine energy in that attack just now. He'd intended to test the shield, but who would have expected that it would actually be rebounded? Kid, let me teach you how to behave. As a junior, you should respect your seniors. The old man wasn't surprised by the outcome before him. Because his shield possessed formidable might, and it was capable of reflecting the might of gods. According to what he knew, before the black skeleton flood dragon shield was damaged, it could rebound 10,000 streaks of the power of God. It was terrifying. Now, it could easily rebound 600 streaks of the power of God. Whoosh! Lin Ling's expression was still calm. However, his hands continued to shoot out bolts of lightning. They roared and surged toward the old man. Such an attack undoubtedly made many people's expressions change drastically. Their eyes were full of seriousness. Lin Ling was indeed strong. His strength was probably comparable to the 9 states' martial gods. However, the old man sneered. He held his shield in front of him. Then, there was a continuous roar around him. All the white lightning was rebounded. Even the onlookers were secretly sweating for him, because the scene in front of them was too terrifying. However, when the lightning gradually weakened, the old man was still safe and sound. He even laughed coldly. Then he pounced toward Lin Ling again. In the void, a huge ancient crocodile god appeared. It wagged its tail as if it could split the sky and earth apart. Rumble! The huge crocodile god bit in Lin Ling's direction. Whoosh! Lin Ling was still expressionless. The 8 wings on his back flapped at the same time. He used the speed of 80,000 worlds and disappeared from where he was. The moment he disappeared, the crocodile god bit down. The void was instantly torn apart. The distant land of infinity was torn apart like paper. It was so exaggerated that it directly turned into dust. If this attack was used in the 10,000 worlds, countless realms would suffer. You're really fast at escaping. The old man floated in front of the crocodile god and sneered. However, just as he finished speaking, a figure shot toward him. The white lightning was blinding and shocking. It was Lin Ling. What is Lin Ling doing? Could it be that he doesn't believe it and wants to fight with his life on the line? It's useless. Seeing Lin Ling's actions, many people were stunned. Some people who had a grudge against Lin Ling sneered. In their opinion, Lin Ling must have broken a broken jar. After all, who asked him to boast before? Now that he was about to lose, naturally he would fight with his life on the line. However, Lin Ling's strength was 800 streaks of divine power. That shield could reflect divine power. Come, I'll let you know how inexperienced you are. Seeing Lin Ling fight with his life on the line, the old man also put his shield in front of him. He sneered. After all, he was a rising star. He was too impulsive. One had to know that his crocodile god's attack was a 4th-grade divine fetus. Although he was confident that he could hurt Lin Ling was too fast. The attack could not catch up. Lin Ling's divine power could also hurt him. However, he had the shield and was not afraid of Lin Ling's attack. Now that Lin Ling was fighting with his life on the line, wasn't that what he wanted? Chapter 42:57. It's going to hit him. At this moment, someone finally let out a shout. Boom! As soon as he finished speaking, there was a roar. Everyone saw a fist land on the old man's shield. This made many people's eyes widen. Lin Ling was crazy. He knew that the black skeleton dragon shield could reflect the power of the gods, but he didn't avoid it. Instead, he took it head-on. Wasn't this giving the old man a chance? Was this his chance? Crack, crack, crack. However, as soon as everyone had this thought, a crisp sound rang out. Then, under countless shocked gazes, cracks appeared on the black skeleton dragon shield, and they continued to spread. What? The old man lowered his head and looked at the shield. He was so frightened that his hair stood on end. In his eyes, the cracks on the black skeleton flood dragon shield became more and more severe. Then, from the center of the cracks, a fist suddenly broke through the shield and rushed over, landing heavily on his chest. Bang! With one punch, the old man spat out blood and fell back. He could clearly feel that Lin Ling's punch was so terrifying that it had seriously injured him. Boom! As soon as he fell back, the black skeleton dragon shield completely exploded. Millions of black skeleton dragon souls swam out and disappeared in all directions. The shield also exploded. Staring at this terrifying scene, the people couldn't help but scream. What the hell is going on? Could it be that the black skeleton dragon shield had reached its limit and shattered? For a moment, many people were puzzled. Only the four gods narrowed their eyes. Obviously, they knew what Lin Ling had used to destroy the shield. Almost at the same time, the crocodile god behind the old man bit down viciously. Its huge bite seemed like it could tear the world apart. However, at this moment, Lin Ling clearly showed everyone what he was relying on. Lin Ling soared into the sky, and there was no longer any lightning around him. Instead, he had transformed into a divine general with dragon claws, dragon tail, and black dragon armor. Behind him, there were even tens of thousands of tentacles dancing wildly, fusing together with his hair. He was majestic. He raised his hands above his head and soared higher into the sky to resist the huge crocodile god. Boom, boom, boom. In the eyes of countless people, the crocodile god's huge mouth finally closed. The moment it closed, the void in front of it was immediately torn apart. Ka. However, just as the crocodile god closed its mouth, it suddenly felt like something was wrong. It was as if someone was forcing its mouth open, and it was opening wider and wider. What? Void was shocked. In everyone's eyes, a figure appeared in the giant mouth. He was using both hands to stare at the crocodile deity's mouth, and he kept pushing it towards the sky. One had to know that the crocodile god was a fourth-grade talent. With such a bite, 90% of the four gods could not withstand it. But Lin Ling was going head-to-head with the crocodile god. That was insane. Plop. The seventh prince, Wangu Yanhui, and the others fell to their knees in midair. Their faces were as white as a sheet of paper, whereas Sister Zhen's eyes were trembling. Based on this move alone, she knew that Lin Ling was not much weaker than her. In fact, Lin Ling was slightly stronger than her. Why? These people who had enmity with Lin Ling were all very indignant. Why was Lin Ling, who had disappeared for 100 years, so powerful? Where did he go? Of course, not only them, but even those who had always doubted Lin Ling swallowed their saliva. They finally knew that Lin Ling had regained his former glory. No, he was even stronger than before. Boom, boom, boom. While everyone was thinking about this, the crocodile god's huge mouth was finally forcefully torn open. Then, blood spurted out as Lin Ling forcefully tore it in half. Violence. What kind of violence was this? Swoosh. The huge crocodile god, dripping with blood, fell from the sky. It was a shocking scene. What a terrifying power. This is not the power of a god, but the power of his realm essence and physical body. Someone finally realized this and said in a serious voice. It should be around 300,000 realms of energy. However, the most terrifying thing is his realm essence. He is only a level 9 martial god, but the density of his realm essence is comparable to that of a god. Someone else said. The person who spoke was very powerful. He was the second strongest person in the Titanic Crescent God Trial Taker. His eyes were burning as if his blood had been stimulated to fight. Whoosh. At this time, Lin Ling had already shot towards the old man with his gorgeous tentacles like an ancient war god. The old man was floating in the void. His eyes were trembling because he saw a monster shooting towards him. He was so scared that his soul almost left his body. This was because he had seen Lin Ling's tyrannical attack with his own eyes. I admit defeat. He frantically retreated and shouted. Admit your sister. However, Lin Ling's fist landed on the old man's chest and broke his sternum. Bang, bang, bang. Next, Lin Ling violently attacked and beat up the old man, breaking his teeth. I'll teach you how to behave. Lin Ling's arrogant voice resounded in the void. Previously, the senior wanted to teach Lin Ling how to behave, but now, Lin Ling was teaching him how to behave. Broken teeth again. Looking at the old man who was beaten like a dog, many people's hearts trembled. Their previous dissatisfaction with Lin Ling had quietly disappeared. The main thing was that Lin Ling was too cruel. He directly broke someone's teeth without saying a word. Moreover, he was so strong. Let him go. What's the point of bullying the old man? You challenged 2 people at once before, so you should also accept the challenge from 2 people. Old man Yi Xian has been defeated. Next, I will fight you. At this time, someone interrupted Lin Ling and appeared in front of Lin Ling in a flash. This person was 2 meters tall and wore heavy armor. With his hands behind his back, He tilted his head and looked at Lin Ling with a strong desire to fight. The trial taker of the Titanic Crescent God, the Imperial Crown Prince, and also the second-ranked trial taker under Lord Titanic Crescent. I think I'm qualified to fight you. The man called the Imperial Crown Prince said indifferently. As soon as he finished speaking, a terrible shockwave gushed out from his body and blew Lin Ling back a few meters. This was an expert with half a step into the ranks of gods and a fifth-grade talent. Pah! He reached out with one hand, and the ferocious divine power turned into a red ball of blood in his palm. Then he threw it out. After his blood ball exploded in the distance, a wave of power even stronger than Lin Ling's burst of power exploded out in all directions. Rumble! Those who were weaker all lost their balance and tumbled in the air like rice straws. With such strength, can I fight you? The Imperial Crown Prince ignored the changes around him and still looked at Lin Ling with a smile. His previous move was obviously to prove his strength and that he was qualified to fight Lin Ling, the second-ranked trial taker. If Lin Ling could still win, it meant that Lin Ling was definitely the second-ranked trial taker under Lei Gong. Chapter 42-58. If Lin Ling could still win, this meant that under Lei Gong's command, Lin Ling would definitely be the second strongest of the trial takers. This also made people feel like they were dreaming. Lin Ling, who had disappeared for 100 years, had returned. Could it be that he was going to become the second strongest of the trial takers? This was too exaggerated. With your strength, you barely qualify. Sigh. At this moment, Lin Ling also spoke indifferently. He threw the dog-like old man aside and looked at Crown Prince with his hands behind his back. Barely qualify? When people heard this, they almost spat out a mouthful of blood. The second strongest of the trial takers was barely qualified? They didn't know if Lin Ling was too arrogant or if Lin Ling was too confident. All right, then let me see how barely qualified you are. Come, defeat me and you will become the second strongest of the trial takers. Sigh. The man called Crown Prince wasn't angry. Instead, his battle intent boiled even more. This was because this was the first time he had heard of Lin Ling's name. However, he had never expected Lin Ling to be so powerful that he had swept through the competition. Therefore, he wanted to see just how powerful this expert who had appeared out of nowhere was. The two stood quietly. Crown Prince didn't activate his godly embryo. Instead, he used all of his realm essence and godly power, forming a terrifying force field around him. The void was like a wave that moved up and down. Lin Ling, on the other hand, used the first stage of his innate talent fusion. Dual Dragon Innate Talent, Realm Swallowing Beast, and Devil Jellyfish. This allowed his strength to reach 400,000 realm essence and 600 strands of godly power. The first stage of his innate talent fusion didn't have as much godly power as Lei's true body. His speed also wasn't as fast, but his defensive power had greatly increased. In terms of overall attack power, it surpassed Lei's true body's 800 strands of godly power. After all, the power of 400,000 realms in addition to the realm essence of the 7 great Danshians was no small matter. Therefore, when Lin Ling stood in the void, he did not cause the void to shake like glass. Instead, he caused the void to become inexplicably heavy. If someone were to stand near him, they would immediately feel immense pressure, as if they were in the realm of the gods. Begin! The Crown Prince raised his eyes. He didn't underestimate Lin Ling. Bloody paths began to appear on the surface of his heavy armor and gathered on his right arm. Suddenly, his right arm swelled up like a giant's arm. Moreover, it was a blood-red giant's arm. Boom! With a blinding divine light, the Crown Prince vanished from where he stood. And above Lin Ling's head, a massive fist came smashing down like a meteor. No one expected the Crown Prince to be so fast with such a massive arm in hand. It was because this type of speed already reached the speed of 800 realms. However, Lin Ling's expression didn't change. His powerful soul force had already sensed the change in the sky. He secretly exclaimed, this Crown Prince's speed was truly formidable. Countless tentacles wriggled behind him and wrapped around a sword. Then, he looked at the huge fist in the sky and fiercely slashed out. Rumble! As the sword and fist collided, the sword that was originally as large as a door was slightly bent. At the same time, a ferocious force flowed through the sword and into Lin Ling's body. Ka-ka-ka! Lin Ling's bones and meridians also emitted a rumbling sound. The Crown Prince's strength was too strong. If it wasn't for his terrifying defense, this punch would have killed him. And now, although Lin Ling was fine, the giant's arm in the sky was still smashing down. The tyrant's song sword seemed unable to block it. What? Lin Ling used the tentacles behind him to hold the sword and block the Crown Prince's attack. What a ferocious force. The Crown Prince's punch has probably reached the power of 1,000 strands of divinity. Lin Ling can't block it. Everyone shrank into the distance and stared at the scene. They didn't expect that the previously insufferably arrogant Lin Ling would be suppressed. This showed the difference between Lin Ling and the Crown Prince. Rumble. The giant's fists in the sky continued to descend, forcing Lin Ling to continuously descend. However, at the critical moment, the tyrant's song sword gave off rays of Bodhi divine light, greatly increasing its divine power. Following this, Lin Ling swept out with his sword, slightly changing the direction of the giant's fists. However, this was not the case. The old fist smashed down fiercely, but it was clearly dodged by Lin Ling. Boom! Lin Ling moved his feet and dodged the giant fist smashing down from the sky. Then, he felt a ferocious force sweeping down in front of him. Your reaction is so fast. However, Lin Ling, is this all you've got? Above Lin Ling's head, the Crown Prince's cold laughter also sounded. He seemed to be fishing for the moon in the water as he retracted his giant arm and swept it toward Lin Ling. From afar, it was as if a giant pillar was sweeping away an army of thousands. Seeing this, Lin Ling also retreated, narrowly avoiding the giant arm. However, just as he moved, the Crown Prince was also incomparably agile. He retracted his sweeping arm and grabbed at Lin Ling with his palm. This giant's arm is indeed powerful. Lin Ling was still retreating, but he was also muttering to himself. He stretched out his hands, and in his palms, balls of golden flames appeared, floating like lanterns. 8,000 great heavenly flames. Then, Lin Ling fiercely slapped out. The current human king's flames had already risen from 3,000 great heavenly flames to 8,000, and the power of divinity had also reached 300. Currently, Lin Ling had fused the first stage talent, but he hadn't fused the human king's flames. Therefore, the human king's flames could easily display the great heavenly flames. Bang! 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 The golden flames that shot out were like lanterns, and like meteors, they crashed into the giant palm with beautiful trajectories. Although the power of 300 streaks of divinity couldn't shake the giant palm at all, it could slow down its speed. The eruption of the great heavenly flames also caused the void to be filled with a golden sea of fire. In the sea of fire, there was a giant human king Dharma idol. Everyone's eyes were all attracted by the golden flames, and their hearts trembled violently. Another fifth-grade divine embryo. Someone muttered to himself. Naturally, he could sense the divine power of the golden flames. Lin Ling is too strong. He actually has so many tricks up his sleeve. They knew that if the one who attacked was not the Crown Prince, with Lin Ling's two great fifth-grade divine embryos, who among the four gods could be his match? However, he's still a little weak in the end. Even Kurishin spoke up, a rare smile on his lips. In the past, Lin Ling had fished with him not long ago. At that time, Lin Ling was still very weak, but now, he could be considered to be completely strong. This kid has indeed hidden his trump card. However, he even hid it from me. He's really asking for a beating. Lei Gong scolded jokingly. He had always thought that Lin Ling's strongest ability was the Lin Ling's Thunder Lock true form, but now he realized that Lin Ling was also heaven-defying in other areas. Although he was still not a match for the Crown Prince, the speed of his growth was very gratifying. Chapter 42-59. It's Lin Ling. Everyone gasped as they stared at the figure rushing out of the flames. It turned out that the human monarch's flame was just a bait. The real power was Lin Ling's next move. Everyone could clearly see that while Lin Ling was running, his palm was hanging behind his back. In his palm, a white lightning ball was blooming with a dazzling light. This was obviously the lightning of the lightning pool physique. Look, his other hand. Suddenly, someone with sharp eyes stared at Lin Ling's other palm. There, a golden flame was burning. It was the human monarch's flame. Flame and lightning in both hands. So this was Lin Ling's killer move. At this moment, the Crown Prince was attracted by the flame on his arm. Now that he had completely reacted, his eyes narrowed. However, by the time he noticed, Lin Ling had already reached his shoulder. This made him laugh coldly and spit out decaying world blood flame. From his mouth, red flames also spewed out, drowning Lin Ling. These flames were called flames, but they also seemed to be blood, containing supreme power. However, in the face of these flames, Lin Ling knew that his killer move could not be broken, so he did not activate the power in his hands. Instead, with a thought, countless tentacles spread out from behind him, wrapping around the tyrannical Song sword and blocking in front of him. Bang bang bang! Whoosh! When the blood-red flames arrived and collided with the tyrannical Song sword, an ear-piercing sound immediately erupted. However, Lin Ling, who was behind the tyrannical Song sword, was safe for the time being. Instead, he jumped up. The qualifications I'm talking about are these. At this moment, he fell from the sky like a meteor. With both hands in front of him, a flame and lightning mixed with terrifying power fiercely slammed down. Is Lin Ling going to win? Everyone held their breaths. They did not expect that Lin Ling, who looked weaker, would have such terrifying battle experience. It was as if he had the ability to control everything. This kind of qualification is still a bit weak. However, the Crown Prince raised his head. Suddenly, a large amount of blood-red light appeared on his body. Countless bloody paths swam along his armor, forming a dazzling red armor on his head. The moment this armor appeared, the void was also illuminated. From afar, it looked like a red lamp. And just as this helmet appeared, the two domineering powers of flame and lightning slammed down. Boom! A ring of terrifying power fused with flame and lightning spewed out in all directions, and a fist of golden white ripples also spread out. Whoosh! When it reached the experts in the distance, even though they were far away, they were still blown back continuously. It was as if they were in the middle of a wave, swaying up and down. This power was indeed terrifying. However, no one paid any attention to the swaying bodies. Their eyes were still fixed on the distance. They saw that Lin Ling was floating above the Crown Prince's head, maintaining the posture of slamming down with his palms. However, the Crown Prince was like a blood-red giant. The blood-red light in his armor did not diminish, but instead became denser. He actually blocked Lin Ling's flame and lightning power. The Crown Prince is indeed worthy of being the second god of the trial. With this kind of strength, it's not an exaggeration to call him a true god. Someone licked their lips and said solemnly, Lin Ling, with this kind of qualification, it's more like an itch. At this moment, the Crown Prince looked forward and said indifferently. Looking at his appearance, not only was he not afraid of Lin Ling's attack, he did not even look at Lin Ling. He was full of domineering. Of course, he was also very surprised because he noticed that Lin Ling's flame and lightning attack had almost reached 1,000 rays of divine power. It was very terrifying. It could be said that if it were not for him, the others would have been smashed to death. Is that so? However, Lin Ling, who was in the sky, also nodded. While the flame and lightning power was still wreaking havoc on the helmet, he suddenly raised his hands high. In his palms, the divine light of Bodhi bloomed. Then, like a drum, he continuously slammed down. Red Bodhi Scripture Heavenly Sovereign Shu. 6 paths of 10,000 winds and clouds. A heroic voice also floated out from his mouth. Yellow Bodhi Thousand Hand Guanyin. Guanin's 1,000 hands shake the universe. Blue Bodhi Sin Sea Dragon King. Divine Dragon Claws slay demons. With every slap, the power of Buddha exploded, and the people also heard the sound of a Buddha bell. As he continued to strike, Lin Ling raised both his palms high and delivered the final strike. Black Bodhi Wrath King. Thunder Wrath shatters the void. Boom! Suddenly, a terrifying Vajra with angry eyes appeared behind him. This Vajra was hundreds of feet tall, and its whole body was emitting a green light. Its muscles were solid, and it slammed down with its palm as if it was destroying demons. What a strong power of Buddha! This power seems to be an innate godly fetus. Lin Ling, where did all these talents come from? Their gazes were fixed on the angry Vajra, and they felt like they were about to suffocate. The Crown Prince's pupils constricted as he felt a domineering and ferocious force coming down on him from above. Buzz! When the Vajra's giant palm slammed down, the Crown Prince's head shook. He no longer looked as mighty and domineering as before. He was directly smashed down like a meteor and disappeared from everyone's sight in an instant, as if he had gone straight to hell. It's broken. Seeing this, someone trembled and exclaimed. Lin Ling's means were endless. How many godly fetus talents did he hide? 7 great dantians. Luli Empress, who had been watching the battle, was also shocked. Although Lin Ling did not show his 7th dantian, she had already guessed that Lin Ling had definitely formed it. Damn it! Luli Empress could not help but curse inwardly. She had always been eyeing the Chaos Divine formula covetously, but now she did not expect that Lin Ling had actually opened his 7th dantian. When all 7 dantians opened at the same time, it would be even more terrifying than a godly fetus. If all 7 dantians' godly fetus matured, it would be a catastrophe. I have to find a way to get the Chaos Divine formula. Luli Empress knew that Lin Ling was no longer the same as before. He already had the ability to completely compete with her, and she had obviously lost the ability to control Lin Ling. If she did not get the Chaos Divine formula, she would be surpassed by Lin Ling, and she would never be able to catch up to Lin Ling. The entire void was shocked by Lin Ling's stunning palm, and no one spoke for a long time. Among Lei Gong's trial takers, except for the young Qilin, everyone had ugly expressions. Although they did not want to admit it, they all knew that Lin Ling was now above their heads. Chapter 4260. Originally, Lei Gong thought that the Luai's true body was Lin Ling's final trump card, Lin Ling's strongest move in the future. But now, it seems like it wasn't enough to be proud of. No wonder Lin Ling didn't focus on the Luai's true body in his previous cultivation. Rumble. However, just when everyone thought that the Crown Prince had lost the ability to fight, a sudden tremor came from the void below. A blinding blood-red light shot up into the sky, emitting a pressure that could crush one's soul. Within the red light, a figure slowly floated up. It didn't look fast, but in the blink of an eye, it appeared in front of everyone. Of course, this was the Crown Prince. However, he was no longer the same as before. His armor had turned completely red, and he had a pair of red wings on his back. These wings were extremely different. They were more like bat wings, and when they flapped gently, surging divine power spread out. This surge of divine energy gave off the feeling that it exceeded 1,000 strands. Could it be 1,200 strands of divine energy? No. No, I'm afraid it's 1,500 strands. Yes. A few divine generals who had been cultivating for a few years cried out in alarm. As for the trial takers of the 4 great gods, they shifted their horrified gazes from Lin Ling to the Crown Prince. 1,500 strands of divine energy. This was more than twice the amount of DE and the others. Although they already knew that the Crown Prince was very strong, they didn't know how strong he was until he revealed his true strength. As for the Crown Prince, he was already an extremely powerful existence before the 9 prefectures were sealed as gods. After the 9 prefectures were sealed as gods, his strength increased by leaps and bounds. It was said that in the divine realm, he even regained the memories of his previous life, and these were the memories of a mid-god. With such talent and origin, no one dared to disagree with him being ranked 2nd among the Titanic Crescent gods. What a powerful divine fetus! He must have reached the 6th grade. Yes. Lin Ling looked at the Crown Prince in shock. He didn't expect this person to be so strong. Not bad. Yes. The Crown Prince nodded and grinned. That Vajra palm was indeed very ferocious. It made me dizzy. It's just dizziness and disorientation, that's all. If you, Crown Prince, had used your divine embryo earlier, that kind of power wouldn't have been able to harm you at all. Lin Ling also smiled. After the battle, he had a good impression of this Crown Prince. Because although this person was incomparably overbearing, he was not arrogant. From start to finish, he had regarded Lin Ling with great importance. Hee, at first, I thought you didn't have the qualifications to make me use the divine embryo. The Crown Prince shrugged. Then his eyes flickered. His body suddenly grew bigger and bigger, turning into a blood-colored giant with wings on his back. This giant was clad in thick and heavy armor. His arms and legs had turned into claws that emitted a merciless cold light. The wings on his back were even more exaggerated. They were incomparably large, and when they gently flapped, a terrifying astral wind mixed with the power of divinity spread out, causing a vortex to appear in the void. Those experts who were already very far away were blown by the astral wind, and had no choice but to retreat again. Lin Ling's body was also unstable. and he continued to retreat. He stared at the monster-like giant, and for some reason, a memory rose in his mind. A bat. That giant looked like a bat giant. Except for the head and the armor on his body, everything else was like a bat. The Immortal Blood God Clan. I didn't expect that the Immortal Blood God Clan that disappeared in the Era of Gods still had descendants. Yes. Thinking of this, Lin Ling said lightly. Yes. Hearing this, the Crown Prince was a little surprised. I didn't expect you to know my origin. However, I am not a descendant. I am the god of the Immortal Blood God Clan. I have reincarnated for thousands of years, and now I have returned. Yes. At present, he was no longer the Crown Prince, but an expert in the Era of Gods. In terms of origin, he was actually not much weaker than the four great gods. This also meant that Lin Ling was fighting against the gods of the Era of Gods, and not a contemporary expert. The four great gods obviously already knew about this, so they reacted calmly. Instead, they stared at Lin Ling. Now that the Crown Prince had returned to the deity position, what about Lin Ling? Did he have a deity position? If he did not, he would obviously lose. The Immortal Blood God Clan lives on the blood of heaven and earth. They are immortal and can be traced back to the ancient times. It is said that a bat heard the great Tao and transformed into a void spirit. Yes. Lin Ling said lightly. For some reason, the memory that rose in his mind seemed to be that the Immortal Blood God Clan was very difficult to deal with. This was because they were generally immortal and could escape into the great Tao and disappear without a trace. The Immortal Blood God Clan lives on blood. They drink the blood of mortals, and even the blood of gods. He wondered if this Crown Prince had drunk the blood of gods in his previous life. It seems like you are very familiar with the Immortal Blood God Clan. Could it be that you, Lin Ling, are also a reincarnated god? Show yourself, my Crown Prince is very curious. After all, you are so strong, so your previous life was definitely not as simple as a lower god. You must be a mid-god. At this moment the Crown Prince said lightly. His words were also what everyone wanted to know the most. After all, Lin Ling had been fighting until now, and the more he fought, the stronger he became. His background was definitely not simple. Even Lei Gong's eyes were burning with curiosity. Before the 9 prefectures investiture of the gods, he had already guessed that Lin Ling's background was not simple. However, Lin Ling had failed in the investiture of the gods, and that had killed his thoughts. But now, those thoughts had floated out again. At this moment, the entire void was staring at Lin Ling, waiting for Lin Ling's answer. In fact, Wangu Yanhui and the others were secretly praying that Lin Ling's previous life was a lower god realm, and not a mid-god realm. Sorry, my previous life was not a lower god. At this moment, Lin Ling finally spoke. You really were a mid-god. Hearing this, the Crown Prince's eyes revealed a trace of fighting spirit. Not a mid-god either. However, Lin Ling spoke again. Boom. As soon as this sentence fell, everyone's heart exploded. Not a lower god, not a mid-god. Could it be that Lin Ling was a mid-god in his previous life? At this moment, many people swallowed their saliva. It was too frightening. After all, no one had awakened a mid-god in their previous life, and Lin Ling was clearly the first. Of course, although this was unbelievable, the strength Lin Ling displayed made people feel that it was all true. Mid-god. Chapter 4261. High-level deity, high-level deity. You have the qualifications to fight against me. Now let's see who has awakened more memories. Sigh. The Crown Prince loosened and clenched his claws, and the battle intent on his body boiled even more. You seem to be thinking too much. I'm not a high-level deity either. Sigh. However, just as he was about to fight fiercely, Lin Ling spoke again. Not a high-level deity? What do you mean? Sigh. The Crown Prince was stunned. Could it be that Lin Ling was an existence that surpassed a superior god? And what was an existence that surpassed the high-level deity? In fact, in my previous life, I wasn't a deity. Sigh. Lin Ling spoke again. Ah. Sigh. Hearing this, the Crown Prince opened his mouth wide. Lei Gong also opened his mouth wide. Those who were looking forward to it also opened their mouths wide. Lin Ling wasn't a deity, but he was so strong that he could even beat De like a dog. This was a joke. However, when people stared at Lin Ling again, they realized that Lin Ling wasn't joking. Moreover, there was no divine light on his body from beginning to end. He really isn't a reincarnation of a deity? Sigh. Finally, someone spoke with difficulty. It seems so. Sigh. He's not a reincarnation of a deity, but his strength is heaven-defying. This Lin Ling is really a variable. Sigh. However, if he meets the Crown Prince, he can't win at all if he's not a reincarnation of a high-level deity. Sigh. Next, a flurry of discussion also floated out. Some were regretful, some were gloating, and some were quietly relieved. Sigh. Sigh. Lei Gong let out a long sigh. He also knew that Lin Ling wouldn't lie at such a time, so this meant that Lin Ling really wasn't a reincarnation of a deity. This also meant that when Lin Ling grew to the limit, he would still be weaker than the four great deities. Lin Ling, I'm sorry, but if you're not a high-level deity, then you're not a match for me. The Crown Prince also shook his head regretfully and was a little angry. This was because he had hoped that Lin Ling was a medium god. This way, this battle would be more intense. However, Lin Ling had disappointed him. Forget it. Forcing me to use the god embryo is your limit. Next, I'll personally defeat you. After that, the Crown Prince didn't plan to delay any longer. His body moved, and although he looked like a giant, he possessed unimaginable speed. A pair of claws mixed with ferocious divine power clawed at Lin Ling. From afar, the Crown Prince looked like he was grabbing an ant. Rumble. His attack was also earth-shattering. It was the most powerful attack he had ever used in the competition. It was as if the entire void was about to shatter. Admit defeat. Lei Gong shook his head. He knew that the competition was finally over. He didn't want Lin Ling to get hurt, so he spoke up for Lin Ling. After he finished speaking, he looked at the other three gods and nodded at them. The other three gods were expressionless, but they nodded one after another, agreeing to the end of the competition. Boom. However, at this moment, a roar suddenly came from the front. Then, a terrifying force erupted. The Crown Prince's enormous claws were blocked by a fist. Moreover, that fist was only the size of an ordinary person's fist. At the moment of collision with the claw, an unstoppable force rushed out. Those who were weaker, even if they were far away, were so shocked that they spat out a mouthful of blood. It was as if they were witnessing the battle of the gods in the past. What happened? This time, everyone looked over. The pupils of the four gods were also trembling as they stared at the scene. In the distant void, 3 rays of light bloomed. They were gold, white, and green. These rays of light enveloped a man. The man was wearing a blue robe. He maintained the posture of punching out, but he easily blocked the attack of the giant in front of him. At this moment, the man's appearance had become clear. Everything was exactly the same as Lin Ling's. 3 divine embryos activated at the same time. Lei Gong instantly cried out in alarm. The Crown Prince's pupils also stared at the insignificant ant in front of him, feeling incredulous. This was because this Lin Ling had erupted with another trump card and blocked his powerful attack. One must know that his attack could even force a god to retreat. Who said that only a superior god can't fight you? At this moment, Lin Ling's hair was wildly dancing. The dual dragon god talent had disappeared. He had already used the second stage of the talent fusion. The second stage increased Lin Ling's power by 500,000 worlds and 1,500 strands of divinity. Now, his divine power was on par with the Crown Prince's, and the fusion of the 3 Tier 5 divine embryos had greatly surpassed the Crown Prince's. Coupled with his terrifying physical strength, he felt that the reincarnation of a common god was nothing more than this. How is this possible? How is this possible? This is fake. This is fake. The Crown Prince's gaze was still fixed on Lin Ling, but he kept shaking his head. He didn't believe that a non-god reincarnation could fight him. Actually, they didn't believe it as well. After all, they'd survived the era of the gods, and they knew how terrifying the gods were all those years ago. It was utterly impossible for them to catch up to the gods of all those years ago by relying on their own strength. How could there be such a variable in this world? Xiao. However, Lin Ling ignored their disbelief. He had already shot towards the Crown Prince, the power in his body surging, giving him a domineering aura that seemed to dominate the world. His fist didn't seem to be as strong as the Crown Prince's, but it fiercely punched out, directly breaking through the void and creating a huge void passage. So what if you're a superior god? Accompanying Lin Ling's fist was Lin Ling's domineering voice. He had bitterly cultivated for 4,000 years. Although he wasn't the reincarnation of a god, he was confident that he could surpass the gods of the past. Seeing Lin Ling take the initiative to attack, the Crown Prince was shocked, because he felt that after Lin Ling used his final trump card, he seemed to have become more confident, as if he was looking down on him. This also reminded him of what Lin Ling had said at the beginning. "You are barely qualified to fight me." But this was a dream for the Crown Prince. He was a mid-level god reincarnated. How could he be afraid of a rising star of the current generation? Crossing Fate Underworld. Immediately, the Crown Prince also attacked, activating all his divinity. He wanted to see if Lin Ling was really that powerful. Boom! The huge palm and Lin Ling's fist collided again. A more terrifying force than before erupted, shocking everyone's eyes and causing pain in their eardrums. The void began to shatter like glass. But what was truly frightening was that the huge immortal vampire god was sent flying by Lin Ling's punch, and somersaulted in the air as if it couldn't withstand a single blow. The Crown Prince actually lost in a clash of strength? This change was like a stone that caused 1,000 ripples. If they didn't know that the Crown Prince didn't know Lin Ling, they would definitely think that the Crown Prince was going easy on Lin Ling. Chapter 4262. Lei Gong had always thought that only the reincarnation of a superior god could compete with the Crown Prince. However, Lin Ling used facts to tell him that even if he wasn't the reincarnation of a god, he could still defeat a medium god by himself. In fact, even the eyes of the other 3 gods flickered. This was because up until now, the top 2 experts of each god's trial takers all had powerful reincarnations, and Lin Ling was the only one who wasn't a reincarnated god. Does this guy have no limits? I thought he was already very powerful if he could defeat DE. The Kurishin also spoke in a low voice, his voice filled with shock. Rumble! At this moment, a pair of golden-white wings grew out of Lin Ling's back. They were majestic, with golden flames on one side and white lightning on the other. With a sweep of the wings, the shattered void was blown into a huge vortex. Lin Ling turned into a gorgeous trajectory and pounced on the Crown Prince. Die! The Crown Prince's eyes were red. The huge bat wings behind him moved, and he chose the most direct and domineering way to clash with Lin Ling. After all, although he was the reincarnation of a medium god, he had only just regained his memories. He lacked the ability to use many of his techniques. However, even the simplest method, with his divine fetus and divine power, was enough to dominate the void of the 9 prefectures. 2 figures, 2 types of wings, clashed in front of countless gazes. Lin Ling's arm had turned golden. Upon closer inspection, there was actually the shadow of a Bodhi in his palm. It emitted a green light, as if he was holding a green gem. Boom! After the collision, the Crown Prince immediately sensed an unfathomable power surging towards him. This power was indestructible and ancient. Even with his 1,500 strands of divine power, he still felt that it was a strenuous and unrewarding task. Upon closer inspection, a pair of fists collided in the void, creating a huge shock wave. However, what shocked everyone was that the power contained in the thin fist was not the slightest bit weaker than the fist of a giant. Whoosh! At this moment, a gust of wind swept towards Lin Ling. Upon closer inspection, it was a slender tail, like a cat's tail. However, when it swept past, its power was terrifying. Bang! Lin Ling didn't even look to his side. His left hand clenched into a fist and punched out, sending the tail flying. Following that, Lin Ling circulated all the world essence in his body. In addition, his god force also surged into his right fist. Borrowing this powerful force, he forced the Crown Prince to retreat continuously. Wow! This scene caused many people to cry out in surprise. No one would have thought that a tiny ant could push a giant. After all, their bodies were extremely asymmetrical. De sensed that Lin Ling's strength was getting fiercer and fiercer as the fight went on. His expression changed drastically. Finally, he realized that he couldn't fight back and immediately retreated. 1,000 calamity 10,000 destruction wave. Just as he floated back, he placed his hands in front of his mouth and suddenly spat out a purple sound wave. The sound wave continued to expand, as if it was going to envelop the entire void. As soon as the sound wave appeared, Many people in the distance felt a splitting headache and groaned. Although this power has the god force, there seems to be another power within it. Moreover, it's a power that's beyond imagination. Among the four great gods, Xueqi couldn't help but be shocked. The current martial gods and gods all controlled the god force. However, De, a reincarnated mid-level god, had actually awakened a technique that surpassed the god force. God steps. Linling's eyes flashed. He instantly sensed that the purple sound wave was different. After all, he also had the god steps and had experienced many years of cultivation. Now he was extremely powerful. Naturally, he was familiar with the Crown Prince's techniques. He obviously didn't expect De to be so powerful in his previous life. After all, De had just returned to his godhood. Just as Linling was feeling shocked, circles of purple sound waves arrived. They were like ropes that tightly bound Linling. Moreover, the power of the sound wave surged into Linling's body. It was so domineering that it wanted to destroy everything. However, Linling was now the fusion of three divine embryos. Although the human king's flame and the thunder lock real body didn't provide a strong physical body, the Vajra Bodhi could turn Linling into a Vajra. The strength of his physical body was even more abnormal than the first fusion. Therefore, the power of the sound wave couldn't affect Linling at all. Ling. Seeing that Linling was bound, De finally let out a sigh of relief. He said indifferently, Linling, I admit that you're very powerful. Moreover, you're the second strongest trial tester. However, you're still not qualified to defeat me. Break for me. However, just as he finished speaking, Linling's low voice came from the front. It was like the anger of a Vajra. Then, Linling's body shone with a green light, causing his skin to emit a metallic luster. However, the luster was green. Then, Linling's body trembled as he let out a low voice. A powerful force broke free from the purple sound waves outside his body. Then, with a boom, the sound waves that bound Linling's body were all broken. This guy. Seeing this domineering scene, even the Titanic Crescent god let out a low roar. He was sure that Linling's strength was in the top 10 among the four gods. It's broken. As for the Crown Prince, his eyes were filled with confusion. He couldn't believe what was happening before him. However, just at this moment, a gust of wind blew at his face. Upon closer inspection, it was a fist. Most importantly, this fist was very fast. In the blink of an eye, it was in front of his eyes. It contained a domineering killing intent. I admit defeat. At this critical moment, the Crown Prince helplessly shouted. Crash! The fist finally stopped in front of his face. That ferocious wind caused his long hair to flutter. The Crown Prince smiled wryly. He had never thought that he would lose. He couldn't help but remember what Linling had said before. He, the Crown Prince, was barely qualified to fight against him, but now it seemed that, after all, from the start of the battle until now, the Crown Prince had been suppressed and didn't have the upper hand at all. The Crown Prince's loss meant that Linling's strength was now in the top 8 among the 40 challengers. A single stone caused 1,000 ripples. After witnessing this fierce battle, the crowd completely approved of Linling in their hearts. The four gods were silent. Only Lei Gong smiled faintly. He knew that Linling's name had spread far and wide among them. No one dared to underestimate him. Linling, you win. At this time, the Titanic Crescent god smiled, but his eyes had a trace of seriousness. This was because from the start, he didn't know who Linling was and couldn't remember this rising star. But now, he completely remembered this name. His words also meant that he recognized Linling's qualifications. The battle for the spots was finally over. Chapter 4263. Still want to fight? The four gods were stunned. Linling still wanted to fight? He had already defeated several powerful experts. Why would he still want to fight? Could it be that he had not used his full strength before? Who do you want to fight? Juk God suddenly asked. I heard that the #1 challenger under Eugene, Luli Empress, is not only beautiful, but also very powerful. So, I want to spar with her. Linling continued with a smile. Luli Empress. Many people looked at Luli Empress. Some of them knew about the grudge between the Empress and Linling. However, They did not expect that Lin Ling would take the initiative to challenge Luli Empress. If they remembered correctly, Lin Ling had been avoiding Luli Empress in the past. Luli Empress's eyes flashed. She was filled with fighting spirit and killing intent. She wanted to fight too. Although Lin Ling was very strong now, she was confident that she could defeat Lin Ling. However, that might not be the case in the future. Today is a battle for the slot. Let's stop before going too far. It won't be good for anyone if we go too far. Let's leave it at that. All right. At this time, a cold voice sounded. It was Eugene who had been silent all this time. She had obviously stopped the battle between Lin Ling and Luli Empress. This disappointed Lin Ling and Luli Empress because they felt that this was the best time to settle their grudge. However, since Eugene had spoken, no one could go against her unless they were stronger than Eugene. Lin Ling nodded and sighed inwardly. He knew that he had missed the opportunity. However, he wasn't in a hurry. After all, he had already surpassed the Glaze Empress. All he lacked was an opportunity to have a great battle. As for him, Lin Ling, as long as he had surpassed someone before, no one would be able to surpass him. Lin Ling had always been confident. Eugene, what are you thinking? Luli Empress was not satisfied. She was not as good as Lin Ling. She was afraid that Lin Ling would surpass her sooner or later. However, this time, the person who spoke was her superior, so she chose to acquiesce. Since the 10 slots have been decided, let's end the battle. All right. At this time, Lei Gong said. Hearing Lei Gong's words, the Kirishin nodded and pondered for a while. Suddenly he said, although the Spirit Nation has disappeared, I think they are still watching us. I think we should unify all the experts and use their strength to become gods. For example, the strongest 100 holy knights, the strongest 10 experts, and the strongest 10 experts. What do you think of the 10 great generals and the 8 most powerful new gods of this generation? Hearing this, many people's eyes lit up. After the investiture of the gods in the 9 continents, the void in the 9 continents was in chaos. The old experts were surpassed and the new experts rose to prominence. It was hard to tell who was stronger and who was weaker. However, if the experts were divided into ranks, then it would be clear. This was the current investiture of the gods. I agree. Juk God nodded. I agree too. Eugene did the same. Since everyone has agreed, then I have no objections. In the end, the Thunder God nodded as well. Next, the 4 gods began to discuss the identities of the 100 great paladins, the 10 great generals, and the 8 new gods. These people obviously had higher statuses, especially the 8 new gods. In fact, they were already the strongest people below the gods. And these 8 new gods were the strongest 8 out of the 40 trial challengers. They were experts like Luli Empress and Young Lin. Among them, Lin Ling was also one of the 8 new gods. Moreover, his ranking was not low among the 8. At least, he was stronger than the Crown Prince. The 8 new gods of the current era. When the people heard the names, they were inexplicably excited. They believed that in the future, these 8 new gods would definitely take over the position of the 4 gods and compete with the Spirit Nation. The 8 new gods of the current era, not bad names. Amongst the 8 strongest challengers, the corners of one of their mouths curled up to reveal a proud smile. This was because having such a title was a supreme honor. Thousands of years later, people in the 9 continents would remember them. This was also something that would go down in history forever. Therefore, the 8 of them were more or less excited. Of course, if there had to be an exception, it would be Lin Ling. This was because Lin Ling had met the pure Yang spiritual master. Therefore, he knew that these so-called 8 new gods were only titles given by themselves. They were not gods at all. Next, the crowd began to leave one after another. Lin Ling walked back to Lei Gong and followed the crowd. However, other than Young Lin, the others looked at Lin Ling with a complicated gaze. Lin Ling, congratulations. A moment later, someone finally reacted and smiled. He cupped his fists and bowed to Lin Ling as if he was trying to curry favor. This was because the current Lin Ling could represent half of the Lei Gong Hall. He was only second to Young Lin. I was just lucky. Lin Ling replied lazily to these polite words, as if he did not care at all. Haha. Seeing Lin Ling's indifferent attitude, the person could only smile awkwardly. However, he did not dare to get angry because Lin Ling was so strong. Looking at the divine generals and the others in Lei Gong Hall, Their eyes were also filled with complicated emotions. This was because not long ago, when Linling came to Leigong Hall, they all thought that Lord Leigong was lenient and allowed Linling to return. However, who knew that they were overthinking things? Linling was still ridiculously strong and even more ferocious than before. With complicated emotions, they walked towards Linling and greeted Linling. Linling was much more polite to these divine generals and returned their greetings. Behind the crowd, only Sister Jeanne did not greet Linling. Now, her face was filled with malevolence and her heart was filled with dissatisfaction. How did Linling become so strong? How did Linling surpass her after 100 years of bitter cultivation? She had a feeling that now that Linling's status and strength had soared, he would definitely make a move on her in the future. Either you die or I live. Linling. Oh Linling, you're so ruthless. You forced me to do this. Sister Jeanne's eyes quietly flashed with murderous intent. One must know that when Linling first came to Leigong Hall, she had a grudge with Linling, which led to her wanting to teach Linling a lesson. With Linling's rise, her lesson had turned into a thick murderous intent. Linling was unaware of all this. In fact, he had no time to pay attention to Sister Jeanne. After all, to him, Sister Jeanne was nothing more than an ant. Linling, I heard that you've become one of the 8 new gods. Congratulations. I was injured previously and did not get to see those battles. Sigh, what a pity. Chapter 4264. AI. It's all because I'm useless. Hearing Linling's words, Xueqi's eyes flashed with disappointment. But what's the point of obtaining a slot? I'm already a cripple. Even if I have a slot to enter the 8 gods' heavenly palace, it's nothing more than a joke. At the very least, you're still alive. Perhaps you can break and rebuild. Perhaps, the 8 gods' heavenly palace will be your place of rebirth. Linling retracted his smile and said indifferently. His words caused Xueqi's body to tremble. He looked at Linling in disbelief, but he soon realized that Linling wasn't joking. Break and rebuild. After that, he kept thinking about Linling's words, and a hint of fighting spirit appeared in his originally dispirited eyes. That's right. Even though he was crippled, he wasn't dead yet. There was still hope. Linling, thank you. Thinking of this, Xueqi thanked Linling gratefully. Thank you, Lord Leigong. Linling smiled and walked side by side with Xueqi. This caused the people behind them to look at him with envy. They thought that Xueqi had managed to climb onto a thick thigh. After all, Linling was an existence that couldn't be underestimated. You dogs, scram. Don't block the way. As they walked along the corridor, there were also people in front of them. However, Linling continued to walk forward with Xueqi, not slowing down in the slightest. Wangu Yanhui, the 7th prince, and the others had unknowingly appeared in front of them. When they heard the voice behind them, they didn't need to turn around to know who it was. Their bodies trembled with anger, but they didn't dare to say anything. They could only brace themselves and move aside, allowing Linling and Xueqi to walk side by side. A few pieces of trash. No matter how good your teeth are, you can't escape the fate of being beaten up by me. Linling mocked as he walked past them. Teeth. Speaking of this, Wangu Yanhui and the others shuddered involuntarily. They had planned to change their teeth after leaving this place, but now, they were hesitating. Just like that, Linling led Saint Guy forward. Wherever they went, both divine generals and trial takers made way for them. The current generation's 8 great new gods were clearly not people they could afford to offend. Putting aside their status as people who stood above tens of thousands of people, even their strength could easily suppress everyone. Linling, I'm sorry I can't fight you. As Linling and the others walked faster and faster, Luli Empress and the others finally appeared in front of them. Beside Luli Empress were 6 people. They were the strongest existences among the trial challengers, including the Crown Prince. Seeing this, Saint Guy immediately slowed down, not daring to step into the circle of the 8 new deities. I'm also very sorry. Linling ignored them and continued to walk forward slowly. 7 pairs of eyes looked at Linling at the same time. Other than the glazed Empress, the Crown Prince, and young Qilin, whose gazes were slightly different, everyone else's gazes were filled with battle intent. This was because they were the strongest amongst the challengers, and they also wanted to test Linling's strength. Of course, Other than the battle intent in their eyes, they didn't show any contempt or disdain. After all, Lin Ling had already received their acknowledgement. Next time, there will be a chance. Luli Empress looked at Lin Ling and said, I hope it won't be too long. Lin Ling nodded and didn't say anything else. He looked ahead and strode forward, quickly leaping past the 7 people. This action caused the crowd to exclaim in surprise. Because Lin Ling was one of the 8 new deities, he should be walking with the 8 new deities. However, Lin Ling had leaped past them. Was Lin Ling trying to say that he was the leader of the 8 new deities? This Lin Ling is strong, but he's also very arrogant. Yeah, he doesn't want to be on the same level as us. I hope I have a chance to fight him in the future. You will. Seeing Lin Ling walk forward proudly, the 8 new deities smiled faintly, their voices filled with coldness and battle intent. At this moment, Lin Ling had already reached the outside. He looked at the endless clouds in the distance and smiled. This time, he had finally taken back everything that had disappeared for 100 years. He had become a trial challenger again, and an 8-star one at that. Goodbye. Behind Lin Ling, the crowd walked out of the palace and said their goodbyes. Then, they separated and flew in different directions. Lin Ling, you're not bad. Unknowingly, your strength has reached such a level. The Curishan walked towards Lin Ling and laughed. Beside him was Xueqi, Xiaoluan, and the others. Xiaoluan looked at Lin Ling excitedly, then ignored the Curishan and came to Lin Ling and bowed. Xiaoluan greets Lord Lin Ling. Xiaoluan's status on the Curishan's side was not to be underestimated. However, in front of Lin Ling, Xiaoluan was still very respectful, as if she was Lin Ling's maid. After all, if it weren't for Lin Ling, she would have died in the mine. None of this would have happened. That's Xiaoluan, right? I heard she's the will of the realm. I didn't expect her to know Lin Ling. Yes. And from the looks of it, she's very respectful to Lin Ling. Yes. The crowd was still leaving, but when they saw the scene in front of the palace, they were all jealous. Because of Xiaoluan's status, the 4 gods didn't dare to touch her easily. Instead, they treated her like a princess. After all, Xiaoluan was the will of the realm. In the future, the 4 gods might have to rely on her. Yet, she was so respectful to Lin Ling. Who wouldn't be envious? Get up. Yes. Lin Ling helped Xiaoluan up. He saw that Xiaoluan was doing well, so he was happy for her. Of course, he also quietly sensed that a powerful force was awakening in Xiaoluan's body. It was millions of times stronger than before. Then, Lin Ling pulled Xiaoluan over and asked her how she had been all these years. Next to them, the Curishan saw Lin Ling constantly asking questions. His eyes widened because he heard Lin Ling ask Xiaoluan if the Curishan had bullied her. Did she have enough to eat in the Curishan? If the Curishan had bullied Xiaoluan, Lin Ling would never let that old Curishan go. Old man. This word was even clearer. Not only did the Curishan hear it, but even Xueqi and the others heard it. They were all secretly laughing. This stinking brat. The Curishan scolded jokingly. He almost hit Lin Ling's head with his pipe. Because Lin Ling didn't give him any face. However, although he looked angry on the surface, he didn't care at all. This was because Lin Ling had used the word old man many times when he was with the Curishan. Moreover, although Lin Ling was Lei Gong's trial taker to the Curishan, he was like one of their own. Okay, it's rare for us to get together. Don't leave today. Stay for dinner. At this moment, the Thunder God walked over with a smile on his face. Okay. The Curishan immediately agreed. After all, he and Lei Gong were close friends. Chapter 4265. That night, Lei Gong set up a banquet, causing Lei Gong's main hall to be bustling with noise and excitement. However, among all the trial challengers, only Lin Ling, Young Qilin, and Saint Yi were qualified to participate. Even the divine generals were not qualified. Lin Ling and Young Qilin could participate because of their extraordinary status. As for Saint Yi, it was naturally because of Lin Ling that Saint Yi could stay. The bustling night quietly passed. The next day, Lei Gong also found Lin Ling and took out 3 divine springs as a reward for Lin Ling. This was the reward for Lin Ling after he became an 8-star trial challenger. Lin Ling, I didn't expect you to become one of the 8 new gods so soon after you returned. Tezkeske, Even I am extremely surprised. After seeing Lin Ling accept the divine springs, Lei Gong sighed and said. He was also very curious about Lin Ling. He did not understand how Lin Ling could fuse the 3 divine embryos. He also did not understand why Lin Ling's dimensional essence was so huge, even more terrifying than before. However, although he was curious, he did not ask too much. After all, he was also a god who had survived the era of the gods. He knew that the world was vast and anything was possible. Therefore, he was curious about how strong Lin Ling would be after he stepped into the realm of gods. However, all of this was unknown. After all, Lin Ling was not the reincarnation of a god. In the future, he could very likely surpass a mid-level god and possibly even become a high-level god. Putting away his thoughts, Lei Gong continued. Lin Ling, the 8-god celestial palace will open in a month. At that time, I will inform you to come back. Now, do you want to cultivate in Lei Gong's main hall? Lei Gong's main hall had a large number of cultivation exotic lands. All of them were treasured lands that were extremely rare. No need. I plan to go home and accompany my family. After all, sometimes cultivation is not just seclusion. Hearing this, Lin Ling shook his head and refused because he had been cultivating in seclusion for 4,000 years. He did not want to cultivate again after just returning. All right, I will inform you in a month. Lei Gong did not stop Lin Ling. He also knew that Lin Ling's strength had increased by leaps and bounds. If he continued to cultivate in seclusion at a certain time, the results would be even worse. After that, Lin Ling took his leave. When he left the Thunder God Great Hall, the 9 prefectures were already in turmoil. Because yesterday, during the Battle of the Gods, it was said that many experts were born. Among them, there were 100 great holy knights, 10 great generals, and the legendary 8 new gods. People were very curious about these legendary figures, especially the 8 new gods of the current era. They were like mysterious shadows that lingered in people's minds. It was as if they were looking up at the peak of the mountain, only to see 8 pitch-black figures standing there, looking down at them like gods. Some of these figures were holding swords, some had their hands behind their backs, and some were playing with flames. Everything was so mysterious. These 8 figures were the gods that they had been chasing for their entire lives, the gods that they had to look up to. I heard that the 8 new gods of the current era are formed by trial takers. Their strength has surpassed all the great generals, and they are the strongest under the 4 great gods. Yes, I know a divine knight. He was lucky enough to go to the void in Lei Gong's main hall and saw the investiture gods with his own eyes. I heard that the 8 new gods are very frightening. They can destroy the void with a single move. Moreover, they can transform into monsters and swallow millions of people in one gulp. Damn it, you're bragging. Please don't spread rumors. Although they are powerful, they don't eat people. Hee hee. I'm just a little excited. However, the 8 new gods of the current era, other than the gods, not many people know about them. It's said that they don't want to be exposed too quickly, so as to avoid being targeted by the spirit nation. Just wait, it won't be long before the truth comes out who the 8 new gods are. The news snowballed and quietly spread throughout the entire 9 states, and even to the 10,000 worlds. It was praised by countless martial artists. When Lin Ling arrived at the 9 states, he also noticed the rumors around him. He couldn't help but shake his head helplessly. The competition for the quota had just ended yesterday, and today, it had already spread throughout the 9 states. It seemed that news was always the fastest. Ignoring the news, Lin Ling walked towards snow-blowing city. In the city, people were also talking about the 8 new gods. Everyone was in high spirits and very excited. After all, in the age of the gods all had their own god positions. In this era there were finally god positions. The 8 new gods, the 10 great generals, and the 100 great sacred knights. This was the current investiture of the gods. This was also the investiture of the gods after the age of the blowout age. Lord Lin Ling is back. He just returned from the gods, so he must have heard the news. Go and ask him. When Lin Ling passed by the city governor's mansion, the guards immediately came up to him with smiles. One of the old men even handed him a pot of good wine and asked with a smile, Lord Lin Ling, how was the battle between the gods yesterday? This was because they all knew that Lin Ling was very approachable and didn't put on airs. That was why they dared to ask Lin Ling. When Lin Ling saw the good wine, he smiled and roughly told them the whole story of the battle. Congratulations to Lord Linling for getting the quota. Hearing Linling's words, the guards were all excited. Linling, that's great. You got the quota? At this time, Xueqi, the city governor, also received the news that Linling had returned. He rushed out of the mansion and asked curiously, "Who are the 100 great sacred knights, the 10 great generals, and the 8 new gods?" Alas, although I'm also a holy knight, my status is low and I can't go to Lord Leigong's place. That's why I don't know anything about them. The 100 great sacred knights and the 10 great generals. There are too many people, so I don't know much about them. However, I have met the 8 new gods once. And I know that one of them is me. Linling drank the wine given by the guard and said casually, "What?" Hearing Linling's words, the eyes of Xueqi and the others narrowed. That was because they had never thought that Linling could become one of the 8 new gods. After all, Linling had disappeared for so long. How could he have reached the top in one step after returning? Linling, are you kidding? Xueqi stared at Linling, tongue-tied. Do I look like I'm kidding? Linling looked at him strangely. He took another sip of the wine and threw it to Xueqi. At the same time he said with a smile, "Thank you for the good wine. I'll go home first." Seeing Linling leave, Xueqi and the others were petrified. They thought that Linling was joking. However, they had never seen Linling joke about serious matters. However, Linling had become one of the 8 new gods. His behavior was too nonchalant. It was as if he didn't care about the title of apotheosis at all. "My lord, slap me. I don't know if I'm dreaming or not," Xueqi, one of the guards, said. Bang! Chapter 4266. The guard in the distance crawled back with a bloody nose and a swollen face. He cried and said, "I only asked my lord to slap me, not kick me. But it hurts. It seems that this is not a dream." Ha 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 ha. Ha ha ha. Halfway through his crying, he immediately looked up to the sky and laughed, causing all the guards to laugh as well. Because they all knew that Linling was from Snow-Blowing City and had been living here. This also meant that one of the 8 new gods was living in Snow-Blowing City. And for Snow-Blowing City, this was a matter of supreme honor. After Linling returned to the courtyard, everyone immediately came to greet him. Then, like gossiping women, they began to ask questions. Linling helplessly patted his forehead. Why were so many people interested in the matters of the gods? Then, he once again told the whole story. Without a doubt, everyone was shocked. Then, Yu and Yuer, and Ancestor Tai Yan were all happy for Linling. After chatting for a while, Linling glanced around and suddenly asked curiously, "Hey, where's Big Brother? Did he go out to train again?" Ha ha ha. They didn't go out to train, but to compete for the position of the top 10 martial gods. Ha ha ha. Ancestor Tai Yan immediately said. Compete for the position of the top 10 martial gods? Ha ha ha. Linling's pupils constricted. He was obviously very surprised, because he never thought that his big brother would have such strength. However, Linling soon felt relieved. 100 years ago, although the top 10 martial gods were powerful, after the investiture of the gods, some sparrows could become phoenixes. On the contrary, it was possible for dragons to become earthworms now. Therefore, his big brother was not necessarily unqualified. Young Master Yao, Ma Jin Tianzi and the others also went. Ha ha. Seeing Linling's surprised expression, Yu also said, because they are afraid that something will happen to Big Brother, many leaders of the God Slayer Alliance went to support him. Therefore, even if Big Brother fails, he should be fine. Ha ha ha. In that case, let's go and take a look. Ha ha ha. Linling pondered for a moment and immediately said. After disappearing for 100 years, he also wanted to see what the current top 10 martial gods of the 9 prefectures were like. All those years ago in the divine world, he remembered that there were 2 martial gods that were eyeing him covetously. One of them was the Wave Mirage martial god, and the other was the Eternal martial god. He wondered how strong they'd become 100 years later. All right, let's go together. Upon hearing Linling's words, Yu and Yuer and Shen Yuan Go immediately jumped for joy. Then let's go together. Linling happened to have nothing to do, so he left the final world with his 3 wives. After all, he didn't know where his big brother was challenging the 10 martial gods of the 9 prefectures. On the other hand, Yu and the others knew how to contact the God-Slayer Alliance. In that case, they would definitely have a way. After a long time, Lin Ling and the others arrived at Heaven Pass City once again. However, this time, no one in Heaven Pass City dared to stop Lin Ling. When the city lord, who had been sealed by Lin Ling not long ago, saw Lin Ling, his expression became incomparably complicated, although he still didn't know whether Lin Ling was a trial taker or not. However, he was clearly aware that he wasn't a match for that mysterious young man at all. City Lord, it's him again. More than a month ago, that guy destroyed Heaven Pass City. Should we capture him? Yes. Someone also noticed Lin Ling and immediately reported to the City Lord. Bullshit, let him pass. Yes. The City Lord didn't hesitate at all and shouted angrily. But this is too shameful. Yes. Those subordinates were very surprised. Heaven Pass City had suffered such a great loss, and now they saw that young man again. Could it be that they could only watch Azure Dragon leave? You can't afford to offend this person. Also, do you want Heaven Pass City to be destroyed again? Open the city gate and let them pass. Remember, tell those ignorant people not to provoke him. If anyone violates this order, they can bring their own head to see me. The City Lord shouted majestically. Although those subordinates were very confused, they didn't dare to disobey the order and quietly pass down the message. This guy called Lin Ling is really arrogant. However, after he returned to the final world, it is said that he defeated many people. Most importantly, regarding this matter, the four great gods didn't stand out to say anything. There must be something fishy going on. Yes. After the City Lord gave the order, he secretly wiped the sweat from his forehead. Then, he watched Lin Ling leave and finally let out a sigh of relief. After Lin Ling left for a full hour, an order was passed down. It was transmitted to all 36 cities in the final world. It was about the investiture of the 9 prefectures. It also stated that Lin Ling was a trial taker and the #1 in this competition. Plop. After reading the news, the City Lord was so scared that he fell to the ground. Fortunately, he didn't stop Lin Ling before. Otherwise, things would be troublesome. He had a feeling that if he stopped Lin Ling from leaving the city again, who knew how many people would die? At this moment, Lin Ling didn't know about the changes in Heaven Pass City. He followed Yu and the others forward. Not long after, they arrived at an abandoned world in the Eastern world. This world was very big, but the continent was filled with poisonous gas. It was not suitable for ordinary cultivators. Everyone who could come here was an expert. Therefore, there were countless experts in this realm. After all, the 10 great martial gods of the 9 prefectures were going to fight here today. How could people not be curious? After the investiture of the 9 prefectures, the 10 great martial gods had changed. Some became stronger while others became weaker. It was as if it was predestined. Other than martial god Di Lei, who was ranked first, and Luli Empress, who was ranked second, the others had more or less changed. Among them, martial god Huan Bo and martial god Yin Qi, who had become martial gods 100 years ago, were eliminated again. Their positions were taken by Black Crow Elder and Mu Tianjian. However, the other martial gods' positions were also in danger. There was a possibility that their positions would be taken away at any time. After Lin Ling and Yu arrived at the world, they looked around and saw a large number of people flying forward. In the distance, there was a yellow ocean. The ocean was quiet and motionless. It emitted a strong smell of sulfur. Moreover, the smell was mixed with poisonous gas. At the edge of the ocean, even though it was far away, they could see the endless number of people. Look, that's Mountain Crusher Gentleman, who is ranked 18th on the Stairway to Heaven on the Divine ranking. That's nothing. I saw the top 10 experts on the Stairway to Heaven on the Divine ranking. I didn't expect that they would also come to fight for the 10 great martial gods of the 9 prefectures. Last time, martial god Huan Bo and the others were defeated. The battle was very exciting. I wonder which martial god's position will be taken away today. I heard that many leaders of the God Slayer Alliance are here today. They are eyeing the martial god's position covetously.